This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
And that foul line has been a dilemma. They made the two big ones the other night. National championship is in the balance. 13 seconds left. Florida leads it by 2. Uzan gonna go. Uzan, give it up. Cryer, 6 seconds, 5 seconds. Sharp. He walked. He can't touch it. He can't. 1 second. And it's over. Florida is back on top of the college basketball world. Championship madness. It's a great day to be a Gator.
We clearly have the best team in America. And in 3 short years in Gainesville, we got the basketball program back where it belongs, which is raising trophies, playing in Final Fours. It's still surreal right now. I can't even lie, man. It's a great feeling.
It's incomprehensible in that situation. We couldn't get a shot. I thought if we held Duke to under 70, we'd have a good chance to win. And I felt like if we held Florida under 70, we'd have a good chance to win. Saturday, we found a way to win. Tonight, maybe not so much.
We have the best backcourt in America. I think we have the best front court in America. And like we've done all year, we made plays when we needed the most. We guarded our butts off down the stretch, made every 50-50 winning play. The Gators are natty, baby. We got the natty, baby. We got the natty. Let's go!
And the big to us flaming. We burn so sweet. The thrill of victory. The agony defeat. We crush slow. Flaming deluxe slow.
I got Mark Dykton texting me and tweeting at me at almost 12:30 at night. And yes, I did stay up. You can hear it in my voice today. Here's what. That's way past my bedtime.
That was not 12:30. It's like 10:15.
No, it wasn't, because you were talking about after the game.
I'm looking now.
Closer to midnight anyway. But I did stay up last night. I did watch that game, and I'm glad I did. Kevin Bowen, when's the last time we saw a Final Four that all 3 games just delivered like that?
Man, incredible. I think I saw the stat last night. The team that led at the under 4 media timeout lost all 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely crazy. Certainly what ifs for Houston. Turnover after turnover after turnover. In the final 90 seconds of that game, I thought the incomprehensible right there by Kelvin Sampson, pretty accurate. I found myself thinking back to the Matt Painter quote at the end of the game last night. Matt Painter said this quite often about Purdue last season. The only bugaboo Purdue seemingly had last year was turnovers. And Matt Painter commonly said, we just got to get out of our own way, because either we're the best three-point shooting team in college basketball, so if we don't turn it over, we'll get those types of shots up, or we are the best offensive rebounding team in college basketball. And so for Houston to not only have the turnovers, but the inability to create what are arguably their best scoring chances, the offensive rebounds, just absolutely killed them there down the stretch. So credit to Florida. They seemingly did it time and time again all throughout this run. It's one of the more cardiac runs I think you'll see in March Madness history. They made the plays down the stretch, and probably mostly will be remembered for what they did on the defensive end of the floor.
James, to that end, I always, maybe it's the dad in me, I don't know, but I always feel bad for guys like that young man Cryer, who went up to the air. There was a blocked path to taking a shot. He had nowhere to go. He dropped it, and to Kelvin Sampson's point, you got to get 19 seconds. You got to get a shot.
Yeah, I was actually Emmanuel Sharp, who missed the shot at the end. Didn't take the shot at the end. But, yeah, because I don't have any kids, I didn't feel any sympathy. They ruined the game down the stretch. I mean, the heart goes out to the kid.
You are hard and brutal,
Look, when you have 4 straight turnovers to lose a national championship, I'm sorry. I don't feel too bad for you. Obviously, I'm not in that moment. And it's not like I would, kick a man while he's down or nothing like that, but I don't have much sympathy, because I was like, you had chance after chance, and you literally did the worst thing you could possibly do on 4 straight possessions.
James would be Walter Clayton spitting on Emmanuel Sharp as he's on the ground there.
This is, in all seriousness, when he went over to hug him, I was like, why? And I know it's good sportsmanship,
because the game's
but
over at that point.
If I'm like the other person, I don't even want you near me. Just go celebrate with your team. That does nothing for me at all. Oh, you know what, man? I am so sorry you made the dumbest decision of the day, and we won because of it. But also, in all seriousness, besides me just trolling, I would obviously feel for the kid. He made a bad mistake, but it's a lot going through your head at that stage of the game. But the closeout from Walter Clayton, I think, is kind of underrated.
That was the play.
Yeah, he was stuck in the middle of the paint when that pass was made.
Exactly. So you watch the playback in slow-mo.
Right.
It looks like it's going to be a clean shot. And then Walter makes a great closeout. And people are saying, oh, you should pump fake. Or be like me. Oh, you got to get blocked and hope you get a tip. But It's just one of those plays where you wish you could redo it, but you can't, and that's the beauty of sports and the pain of it as well. So, jokes aside, shout out to Sharp. He made some big shots on the stretch to get him back into the game and give him a chance to win. It's just that Florida was one play better.
I think Walter Clayton Jr.'s reaction at the end was kind of like all of ours of like,
that was cool.
Just stunned. Kelvin Sampson's face, CBS had a great pan to Kelvin Sampson, like, wait a minute, do we really not get a shot off in this moment? The ball didn't even go inside the arc.
Jeez.
Even if Sharp gets the shot off, I don't know if there's enough time for an offensive rebound.
No, and that was the plan, too. They were supposed to have
Cryer was the initial reaction. Cryer was the initial action there, and they're obviously running, the little elevator screen there for Sharp, and again, Clayton closes out, but it probably, as much as the 19 seconds, they had 9 turnovers all game, and they had 4 of them in the final 90 seconds. I mean, they go to that final media timeout, and I sat there thinking, okay, they're up 3, Houston. I'm waiting for the Walter Clayton Jr. shot, and sure enough, he hits it right out of that timeout to tie it at 60. Yeah. That's the last field goal Florida made. I mean, it's crazy to think Florida didn't make a field goal in the final 3 minutes of the game, and they won. Like, if you would have told me, okay, freeze it right here, Florida's going to come back and win the game, I would have said, all right, how many threes did Walter Clayton Jr. hit in the final? Because that's what he did against UConn. That's what he did against Texas Tech. They seemingly made all these plays, and yet they really just made foul shots down the stretch, and Houston had turnover after turnover. So just an unbelievable Final Four. I mean, all 3 games lived up to the hype. All 3 games had the big leads blown away, and Florida is a hell of a story in the sense of no top 100 recruits. They're built in a very unique way, from the mid-major portal guys to the international guys. Again, Clayton Jr. certainly emerged here in this tournament, but I don't think it's like a star-studded NBA-filled roster by any means, and yet they found a way time and time again here to get it done.
I will add that I thought Florida's ATOs after timeouts were amazing.
Tremendous. Yeah.
Every time they needed a good look or a shot in the arm, they got it. So they were cooking up. Yes, because there are a couple of moments where I thought, hey, man, these 1 or 2 points are going to cost you because of the techs. They got 2 techs in last night's game. They still win that game. And, again, I just didn't expect Houston to sort of just wither like that down the stretch. And to your point, KB, I hated the last possession that they had because they walked the ball up like it was a tie game.
Yeah, I would like to have seen him go earlier just to create the offensive rebound opportunity.
Exactly, and then you extend the game somehow. And then also I thought that, Kelvin Sampson, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but I thought you just overthought it a bit. You're down 2. You have the best one-on-one player in the game in LJ Cryer. Trust your guy and get out the way. Go 4 flat, 4 guys on the baseline, just in case they need the rebound. And my guy versus your guy, I'm going to get a bucket and make the ref make a call. But all that like commotion and the extra action, all of that was unnecessary to me. I thought that he kind of outsmarted himself. And I think you kind of warned a little bit, KB. They celebrated a lot after the Final Four win. And then the next game, you're feeling what Duke felt, because to me, it wasn't just Florida like making plays on the stretch. You gave them the game. You literally handed them every opportunity to beat you because you could not even get shots off. Turnover after turnover after turnover to end that game. So that's one that will sting for a long time for Houston. And I got a kick out of our guy, Jake Query, tweeting out the video of Houston. He's like, if anybody knows to shoot it at the end, it should be them.
Ow. That's not good.
It's true.
You guys, does it bother you sometimes? And it isn't, I don't think it had a huge impact on the game. But the first half, they hardly called any fouls, and the more physical Houston team, I thought, took advantage of that. It felt like in the second half, they were calling fouls everywhere.
Yeah, I feel like that's typical college basketball.
We see that a lot these days, don't we?
Yeah, and maybe I'm just used to how it is in the Big Ten, where a guy can get like kicked in the teeth in the first 5 minutes, and the last 5 minutes I breathe on him, and it's a foul. But I figured it would tighten up a bit, but I don't necessarily think that the officiating decided the game, if that makes sense. Like,
no, just the style had to change.
Yeah, it definitely got tightened up at the end, which is fine by me. Again, you're probably looking for a foul there at the end if you're Houston, some other way to tie the score, but it's a tough way to end it. But overall, great game. I mean, talk about a cardiac team. They just kept finding ways to climb back into that game and give themselves a chance to obviously win it.
Yeah, I just asked for consistency. And I felt like we didn't get that at all from the first half to the second half from an officiating standpoint. I mean, Florida led for 64 seconds the whole game. I mean, it's just
wow.
It's amazing
something.
when you freeze frame them in the second round against UConn, the Elite Eight, Texas Tech, again Auburn, on Saturday night, and then last night. It's one of the more cardiac runs. It's not UConn covering the spread in all 12 of their games over the last couple of years. So.
Check this out, KB. We have Greg L in our YouTube chat. Samson only cares about calls when they're impermissible.
Oh, look at that.
He's not wrong.
Jeez.
He's not wrong.
You guys called me cruel. Like, man, that's top rope right there.
But he's not wrong.
He's definitely not wrong.
Him and Jake Query trading tech on that
Maybe
front.
that's Jake's burner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jake up at this hour would be the last thing that would happen.
Good point. All right, coming up in a minute, we'll tell you about everything else going on in the world of sports. Terrific article in the Indianapolis Star today that we will get to before the day is over. Rick Carlisle is going to be here at 8.
Yeah, and I do think we should mention a little bit more on that.
We'll do that in a second.
Joel Ericson, I thought, getting into the Braden Smith story, exactly, why his absence was a month plus. I know that was certainly a topic we discussed a whole lot in the fall. I would call the story vivid. I would call it vulnerable. I would call it incredibly detailed. So Joel's going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock. And we'll share more throughout the morning. Just a wonderful piece, and really a credit to Braden Smith and his wife, Courtney, for the vulnerability they showed with that story.
I will talk more about that in the rest of the hour. Also, checking with Rick Carlisle, top of the hour. Stay with us, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. 2025-26 season tickets are on sale now. Registration for iconic Hinkle Fieldhouse premium seats runs through May 31st. Don't miss Hinkle Magic. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Speaking of Butler, they picked up a transfer yesterday. Kevin Bowen, Michael Ajayi, coming over from Gonzaga. The year before that, he had a really nice scoring year for Pepperdine. So now he goes on to the Butler Bulldogs.
Yeah, big year for Pepperdine. Yeah, 17-9 he averaged there, then went to Gonzaga and really didn't do a whole lot for them in coming off the bench. So obviously, Butler hopes to tap into the Pepperdine side of it. So with him and Jalen Jackson, certainly a new-look Butler team with that loaded freshman class coming in what is a massive fourth season for Thad Matta.
And the big news, college basketball, JB Houston had it, let it go, and Florida comes up with a 65-63 win in the NCAA tournament.
I thought it was pretty funny to hear Walter Clayton Jr. after the game like, shout out, Mom, I love you, girl. And I was like, that's really cool. It kind of reminds you of the youth of these players, and he was a big-time player, most outstanding player in the Final Four, so respect to him and the Gators.
Was our favorite moment and one shining moment the double fist chest pound from Braden Smith?
Not my favorite. I mean,
Okay.
It was a moment in it, but I expected to see the Myles Colvin
I know.
dunk over
we
that.
did not get the Myles
or
Colvin
even
dunk in
just
there.
some other moment from an actual play from the Purdue Boilermakers. But, I guess I can't nitpick too much.
All right, NBA, the Indiana Pacers return to the Fieldhouse tonight. They have only 4 games remaining, the next 3 at home. Kevin, what do we look for tonight?
Well, I am curious. Is this a gambling 101 game? Have you guys seen the spread on this game?
I actually haven't looked at it.
I'm going to guess minus 13.
The Pacers are favored by 18.5 points.
Take the over.
It's the third highest spread in the NBA this season. This is regardless of any team in the league. It almost feels like you have to take the Wizards. You
No.
give me 18.5 points in an NBA game?
I'm not taking the Wizards in anything. You pound the over.
Well, the over, I mean, so you mean take the over on total points in the game?
I would just I'm sorry.
So do you think the Pacers are going to win by more than 18.5?
Yes.
Okay, so you would take the Pacers minus 18.5.
Yes, I would. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just can you imagine starting an NBA game and knowing you get 18.5 points?
Have you seen the Wizards as of late?
Yes, yeah. I have.
Did you see what happened the last time they played the Wizards?
There is a part of me. It's like once you get to the fourth quarter, aren't you kind of in rest mode if you're the Pacers? Like if
I'm
you're
talking
up
to
20,
Rick Carlisle later today
Johnny
about it. Don't you
Furphy
hold that ball. Don't you hold that
Furphy
ball.
with 22 points coming your way.
then
There
it's
you
a
go.
battle of G leaguers pretty much in the
Let's go.
fourth quarter. So,
That's why I'm not touching that line at all.
I mean, literally. Yeah,
Don't touch it.
Exactly. So again, the Pacers on the verge of clinching home court here. Back-to-back coming up Thursday, Friday. It'll be the Cavs, whatever the Cavs look like, and the Magic, and then Sunday afternoon in Cleveland.
The Detroit Pistons lost last night, and that now puts them 3.5 full games behind the Pacers for the 4th spot. The Bucks now just 3 games behind the Pacers. So those two teams look like they're going to be vying for 5th and 6th. It looks like the Pacers with just a little bit of, not even luck, just get that win tonight, move forward. Looks like they're on their way to maybe home court advantage in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I'm looking at how the standings are right now, and I'm like, man, that Pacers-Bucks matchup. I know I can been saying I'll take the Bucks over the Pistons without Dame, but have you seen Giannis lately?
He's on fire.
Ooh, Jesus. So either way, the Pacers should definitely be confident, but my goodness, it is certainly going to be an interesting playoff opener no matter who they get.
The Bucks will be playing at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. Major League Baseball yesterday. There go your Cubs again, Mark Dykton.
Mm-hmm. I know, you're all worried because they lost a game, and then they shut out the Rangers last night 7-0. That was a good one.
Justin Steele went 7 innings and a 7-0 shutout of the Rangers, so you got to love that one right there.
Yeah.
The
And
Reds
also,
won.
shout out to the Reds, Hunter
Yes.
Green. That was an impressive performance. I didn't see a single pitch of it, but sounds like it was good.
Well, he threw a lot of them. North of 100, he actually was in there and trying to get the 27th out. They pulled him there in the 9th, 8 2/3. You don't see many of those starts in today's Major League Baseball, let alone on April 7th. So, yes, very much appreciative of that effort from Hunter Green. The Reds got 2 in the 8th, so it was quite the pitcher's duel for a while there. They win 2-0.
I feel like is it against the rules now in baseball to let a pitcher go for more than 90 pitches?
Seemingly. Yeah, Hunter Green will probably need Tommy John here in the next week or two.
Get past the 6th inning these days. Like, whoa, that thing. Like, what are we doing?
Colts local pro day coming up at 10 o'clock. James Boyd will be up there for that. Again, we touched a little bit on what a local pro day means yesterday. Basically, picture high school graduates from the surrounding area. You know, it's a 90-mile radius that have played wherever college football. They'll likely be in the building. IU, Purdue, Illinois are typically the big colleges from there. But I'm trying to think. Marcus Bowe, probably from Purdue, James. Is that the best prospect that would be here in the local audience? You know, some years you've had like a Juju Brents who played collegiately at, Kansas State and Iowa, but he went to high school here at Warren, so he would be there. I don't know of anybody like that is supposed to be a first or second round pick.
Yeah, I don't expect like any high-end like IU players to be there. I know some people might be asking about that, but I don't expect.
Well, I mean, IU doesn't have really any, like Curtis Rourke or CJ West.
Yeah,
I guess,
like I don't expect those two to be there. To be honest with you, I mean, it doesn't hurt if they do come out, but I mean, they've had some pretty big, I would say, opportunities already. I want to say, yeah, Curtis was at the Combine, correct?
Yes, yeah, he was. So. Yeah, CJ West had a really good all-star circuit. So that will be on your news item today. Again, much more on the Braden Smith story. Joel Ericson is going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock. Just a tremendous piece from Joel. Extreme vulnerability from Braden and his wife, Courtney. So we'll touch on that here coming up on the other side. Just a couple portal items for me. You guys mentioned, or Jeff, you mentioned earlier, Butler getting the kid from Gonzaga, Myles Colvin to Wake Forest. That was announced yesterday. Nigel Pack. So Kansas State, Miami, now Oklahoma for him. I think there was some Indiana interest, if I saw correctly on that. So Nigel Pack and Tay Davis, a couple local guys going to play for Porter Moser at Oklahoma.
That's just about full-on transfer portal time now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got a kick out of Kyle Neddenrup when they tweeted out the One Shining Moment video. He was like, well, disclaimer, it should say, those in this video might be on different teams now because of the transfer portal. And I was like, that's honestly true. So we're in a new age, I guess.
All right, more on football coming up in a moment as we continue. Fan Morning Show, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
They having those open tryouts, JB, over at Lucas Oil today? Is that what they're doing?
Yes, local pro day.
I asked that because as I was
over at the team facility.
Oh, at the team facility.
Yes.
So it's not Lucas Oil. Okay. Thought I saw a couple of scrapping, large, athletic-looking men carrying big athletic bags behind him down the street this morning on wheels.
We should have asked questions, you know?
Yeah.
Be a journalist.
And just to be clear, these are not open tryouts. This is an invite to the local pro day.
Yes.
Well, you're invited
Yes.
via James Boyd. Now, when you get there, you might get arrested, but hey, I got you halfway there.
Yeah, invitation only. Don't just show up with your cleats, right?
Right.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of football and the Colts, fascinating story all three of us have been perusing this morning that's out of the Indianapolis Star by Joel A. Ericson. Kevin Bowen, Braden Smith really, and his wife both really opening up about extended absences, what was going on, how it went, and it's wow. Just wow is all I can say so far.
Yeah, certainly that. Again, Joel's going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock. Just to refresh everybody, Braden Smith missed the final 5 games of last season. He was away from the team. I believe, if I have the wording right, James, it was just illness. Was that what it was labeled? Or just personal, right?
Personal.
Yeah, personal reasons.
Was what it was labeled as. I guess maybe where I'm getting to illness is as the season started to kind of play out. I did think Chris Ballard maybe at one point at the end of the year mentioned, we hope, Braden's doing better, something along those lines. Was about the most clarity we had gotten, or I guess a hint of detail. So in Joel's story basically said, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, religious scrupulosity.
Scrupulosity, I think.
Is
you could be right.
What Braden was diagnosed with. This is an OCD. He entered a facility in Colorado at one point late in the season to try and get help with this. That didn't seem to do a whole lot in terms of correcting it. He actually was diagnosed there, spent nearly 50 days in Colorado. Actually met some former and current NFL players while he was there, and then ended up going to Tijuana, Mexico back in early January. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing this drug correctly. Ibogaine. That is where he took a drug over kind of a 5-day span. And basically he feels like that has now got him to a point where he makes it very clear in the story he still has OCD, but it doesn't have a hold over him. Doesn't, dictate his life. But I mean, there were some very jarring scenes in there. And James, the quote, one of the many quotes that stood out to me was, Braden Smith said at one point he felt like he was a month away from putting a bullet through his brain. And Courtney, his wife, and they have a young son. They have a right around a year-old Wyatt. At one point, Courtney felt the need to, change the safe number on guns in their home. And so this is obviously an extremely serious issue. I read it and I was struck by many things. It borderline a miracle Braden Smith played the type of football he did leading up to this, because this is something he felt like he was dealing with back earlier last season, and actually looked at Courtney at one point after the Bears game, which I think was a week 3 or week 4 game for the Colts last season, and said, if this doesn't get any better, I'm going to retire from football.
Yeah.
And he continued to play for another 2 months after that and played very good football.
I was going to say he played well.
So, yeah, just an unbelievable story from Joel, and certainly just a major hat tip to Braden Smith, who is certainly one of the quieter players I've ever covered in my time, for him and his wife having the vulnerability that they had.
It almost sounds cliche, but JB, you truly just don't know what someone's going through. You just don't know.
You really don't know until you ask the right questions and you give people the space to be themselves and be vulnerable. So I give a lot of credit to Joel A. Ericson for writing that story, sharing that story with the humanity that he did. And obviously most of the credit goes to the people involved in the story. And I think, I've been very open about this. Mental health, dealt with some own stuff in my own family. So when I'm reading this and I hear about, mental facilities and, different types of drugs people try, and the questioning everything, like I've dealt with this personally with my own loved ones. And so, I'm saying this through a smile because I enjoy, or I love when people kind of find that ability to talk about it. Because I think sometimes when you're the, man, or you're the athlete, or you're the breadwinner, you're scared to say certain things out loud because it makes them real, or it makes you weak or something like that. So the fact that he was able to,
especially as a macho NFL football
player,
player,
you're supposed to be the guy
lineman.
mauling guys every Sunday, but to go through all of those things and to come out on the other side now, where he still says he's dealing with these things, which, for those who might be unfamiliar, when you have, like, I'm not an expert by any means, but again, I've seen some interesting things in my life. When you go through certain mental illnesses, I was just naive growing up. I thought, one of my friends was going through something. Oh, you just take a pill and you'll be fine. Like, everything will be corrected. It's not that simple. A lot of it is, it might be therapy, it might be medicine, it might be talking to people, it might be changing your routine, it might be everything as far as your life. And so it really does kind of break you down. But to see what he's kind of built up since then, and the markers he kind of gave himself throughout this process, hats off to him for sure. And again, and shout out to Joel for getting to the heart of the story and not just making it, a tweet. You know what I mean? Like, this was something that allowed, the family, the people involved to sort of share the whole experience to hopefully help somebody out there. So for those listening, man, 988 is always available to you if you need that type of help. And shout out to Braden Smith, man. I'm excited to see him get back out there and continue his career on his own terms.
And Kevin, I thought one of the interesting quotes in there was from his wife when she was talking about, he was telling me that he doesn't feel right. He's not right. And the thought of him going to try and wrestle 300-pound men, that's a dangerous thing when you're not feeling quite right.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be mentally there. There's parts in the story where he talks about, getting to the facility and not being able to sit through a meeting, or going back home and trying to sleep away, your anxieties or your depression or whatever you're kind of trying to run from. And I thought the religious part of it was very interesting as well. As someone who grew up going to church every Sunday school, can quote, scriptures, maybe not as well as Braden Smith and others. I was a little more hard-headed, I would say, in Sunday school, but you can sometimes, I think, get a little bit lost in the, just like the rules of religion and the grace you're supposed to give yourself. And he talks about it a lot in his story of, like, man, I'm supposed to be this perfect human. I'm chasing this perfect person. Whereas now I think he's probably in a better space to at least give himself the space to be human and not necessarily feel like everything you do is an issue or a sin or something like that. Because I promise you, it is not easy to kind of grow up in that environment. And even in the story, talk about some of the stuff that he's dealing with goes back to his childhood. And I'm glad that he's kind of figuring it out now.
Yeah, I found it super ironic that he actually had a practice squad teammate. They don't reveal the name of the player, but who had the exact same thing and has gotten over it. I say over it in quotes. I think that was what was said by the teammate. I know you're not totally over it, of course. But, I think that probably got Braden to a point where he could at least play up until, right around Thanksgiving, I think, is when his final game was from this past season here. So, yeah, again, the latest we've heard from the Colts is Braden Smith's in a much better spot, and he will indeed be playing football for this team in 2025. If you want to move away from the story, which, again, Joel's going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock to talk more about that, and you want to speak on football terms, it is a contract year for Braden Smith. The Colts did continue to pay him throughout this last year. I assume, this is me inferring a little bit, but I think if the Colts are going to be as public as they are about kicking the stigma, that when these moments arise, you can't just ignore them or treat them like, hey, we're not going to pay that guy. And so clearly I think the Smith family is also appreciative of what the Colts did for them. Now, having said that, there was a contract restructure for this coming season. Joel mentions in the story that it dropped about $8 or $9 million from a cap hit standpoint for what Braden Smith was scheduled to make this season. So, again, he is scheduled to play here coming up this year. Matt Gonzalez is also on the roster. You think a little bit of, hey, is that the right tackle of the future? Those sorts of things. We'll see how the draft plays out. I fully expect the Colts to take an offensive lineman at some point, maybe in the middle-ish rounds, but that is your 2025 update, I guess, on Braden Smith. Colts will begin their offseason program a week from Monday.
I do want to throw this out there real quick. Do you remember when he was going through his knee issue? I believe it might have been the 2023 season. It was the season that AR got hurt. Because towards the end, his knee kind of gave out at the end, and he couldn't finish the season. We went to the locker room that one day after, I believe they beat like the Raiders or somebody, and he couldn't go sit down. He was in that little hallway, and he's pounding the wall, because his knee was like hurting him that bad, and it took him forever to, basically decompress from the game, take off his gear because he just couldn't move. And I bring this up to just kind of drive home the point that, like, for him to miss 5 games due to this last season, for a guy who's willing to play through anything, it kind of lets you know the severity of it, because he truly does love his teammates and the game.
Yeah, he's not a very outward personality at all. I mean, again, he's one of the quietest Colts I've ever come across.
Yes, he wouldn't even tell us he was hurt. We're like, we can tell you are, and he's like, I don't care. I'm trying to go out there and win for my guys.
Yeah, Courtney's wife made it clear in the story, and I think she's a little bit more outgoing than Braden, and just like how much he does love the game of football. And this is something that does need to continue to be a part of his life. Because when you read the story, you're honestly like, I can't believe he's continuing to play football. There are parts when you read it, you're like, wow. I mean, Braden Smith's made a lot of money for himself. Braden Smith has been a hell of a player, frankly, in the NFL. But Courtney makes it clear that, like, this needs to be a part of his life here, even if he doesn't outwardly show it to the extent of whatever, Zaire Franklin or Darius Leonard, or, even Quentin Nelson shows a lot of emotion on the field and celebrating plays, even if Braden is not that type of guy. So just absolutely incredible vulnerability from Braden and his wife, because I didn't know we'd get this, James. I was curious if and when we would ever hear the Braden Smith story. I was not, again, there are some players in that locker room, if you told me they were going through something like this, I would have expected to hear from them. Sometimes you see players Tribune pieces, or these players go on a podcast with someone they feel super comfortable with, and they kind of have a one-on-one in that setting. This is a very kind of traditional, old-school method to go about it. I mean, you are literally contacting I assume, your local Indy Star beat reporter, and Joel certainly has a ton of respect, and it does not shock me at all that them confiding with the Colts, however this went down, that they felt, I don't know if comfort is the right word, but they felt safe, I guess, with Joel explaining their story in the manner that was shown.
I would also say it speaks to Joel, because after, kind of, stalking this guy for the last couple of years on the beat.
Stalking Joel, that is.
Yeah. Not Braden or any players. I saw Drew Ogletree randomly downtown a few days ago, or about a week ago. That was weird. I'm like, I'm supposed to see you at the Colts facility, not
Did you
now.
stop traffic to cross the street and wave at him and yell at him?
Actually, he saw me before I saw him. I heard some guy yell out my name.
Hard to miss Drew Ogletree with that hair and that.
It's Drew Ogletree going to get some seafood boil down here downtown. So getting back to Braden and Joel, I think Joel has, a lot of, cachet in that locker room, a lot of respect from the guys about how he goes about his business. Man, a lot of respect, and has garnered a lot of respect from the people around these athletes as well. So when he inquires about things, I think that it's a little bit different than if, this person I don't necessarily talk to about anything is reaching out. I mean, Joel's the guy oftentimes reaching out about the littlest things that when I was younger or new to the beat, I'm like, that doesn't really matter. But I think it leads to moments like this where it's like, oh, this guy cared about, this thing that might have been insignificant to somebody else. So now when this bigger story comes, we trust him to tell that story. He's done this in the past with other, important pieces, but I was just texting him right now, and I told him the best way to do this, in my opinion, in this business is to tell good stories about good humans from good humans. And so you got one good human writing the story, and 2 great humans, I would say, and Braden and his wife, Courtney, opening up and sharing their story as well.
Talk to Joel Ericson about that piece a little bit later on today. While we're also talking about the Colts for what's happening as they rebuild this team and try to get in position, Kevin, I thought you had a terrific thing that you do a lot, and it was terrific this morning. I know you wrote it yesterday, but I wrote it this morning, the positional draft for the Indianapolis Colts. Like, what are likely the most important positions for them to address round by round?
I do annually, just try to match, round 1 is obviously the most important round of the draft. You match that round to what you would think is the biggest need on the roster, and so on and so forth. Going through, there's 7 picks. The Colts currently only have 7 picks entering the draft. So I think as we inch closer, 2 weeks from Thursday, we'll get more into those topics, those debates. I find tight end round 1 pretty obvious. I think after that, though, you can have a lot of debate in what you would list at round 2.
I disagree already.
Or round 3, or round 4.
Which part?
I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm like, man, I see a linebacker above guard, and I'm like, man, that guard spot, I could argue, could be 2 on this list, just depending on
Yeah, and I think you can make an argument Zaire Franklin's the most indispensable player on the roster right now. When you look at linebacker, I mean,
technically he's the linebacker right now, right?
So that's where, and again, I certainly we can get into this topic. I know today, when you're recapping the national title and the Pacers are playing, and you have this Braden Smith story, we could probably wait a little bit on some of that draft topic, but I think it's something to where when they get to next Thursday, I guess next Friday, when round 2, 2 Fridays from now, when you get to round 2 and round 3, I think there's plenty of debate that you can have on that front.
I see the mock debates coming out weekly, for the mock drafts, I should say, coming out weekly, and that starts the debates that we're having. And I like the fact that a lot of them switch it up. But almost everyone you read, JB, is either Warren or Loveland at 14, one of the 2 tight ends.
Yeah,
almost
which is
everybody's looking at that, which makes you wonder, right?
Colts fans are all like, that means they're not going to be there, So I would just say, if you're making some mock drafts, do a couple that have contingency plans for that, because it's very hard to predict if you're going to have a chance at those 2 players at 14. The further down, obviously, you go in the draft, the less predictable it becomes. So we'll see, but I definitely think that tight end could certainly be, a pick for them. And like I said, I just wonder if the Loveland shoulder injury that he's recovering from, the shoulder surgery, is a factor, if at all, in his draft process when it comes to the Colts, because I believe he told us at the Combine he won't be clear for contact until maybe early August. And if you want him to hit the ground running and to be a plug-and-play type of player, does that affect, like, the learning curve going from the NCAA to the NFL? So we'll see, but I certainly wouldn't mind it as a reporter. I'm like, look, go get the big-name tight end, do whatever you got to do to go get him. But I actually wouldn't bank on Tyler Warren being there at 14 at all. I think Loveland is actually the more realistic pick at 14, just based on everything that I've read and all the mock drafts I've seen and conversations I've had. I mean, other teams are very interested in Tyler Warren as well.
Rick Carlisle, reminder, joining us here in a little bit more than 10 minutes. Pacers-Wizards, 18.5-point favorite. The Pacers tonight here, back inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Guys, the biggest gripe I had on the final possession last night, I'm fine with them shooting a 3. You just got to do it earlier. Like, fire that thing up with 9 seconds to go. Fire that thing up with 8 seconds to go, and let one of your best attributes, arguably their best attribute, is offensive rebounding. How many times did they bat a ball out last night? Keep another play alive. I mean, they had, 15 of them? 16? I mean, against a big Florida front line.
Yeah, LJ Cryer had the great tip.
He had the huge tip.
Yeah.
The putback on his own miss there. Because the thing about it, too, is when you get into those final possessions, teams are scrambling so much defensively, they oftentimes lose the thought of, bleep, where is the guy I'm supposed to block out here?
Especially in college.
They're so focused on getting a hand out on the shooter and, was I supposed to switch and all that. If you want to run the elevator for Sharp, sure, run it. But make sure that ball is in the air with 7 or 8 to go.
Yeah.
That ball, even if Sharp shoots it, I don't even think there's enough time. And I can hear other people say, you don't want to leave your opponent any time left on the clock. You're the best defensive team in college basketball. If you can't get a stop up 1 or tied up with 6 seconds to go and Florida having to go the length of the floor, then it's not meant to be. So just those turnovers. I mean, 3 of them in the final minute,
4, I think.
4 of them in the final 90 seconds. Yeah. The fact that they didn't even get shots at the rim. I mean, if you just put the ball on, to James's point, LJ Cryer, the smallest dude on the floor, had an offensive rebound putback. You just put the ball on the rim, chaos can ensue. They certainly called a whistle a whole lot in the second half.
Yeah, you never know if you get a foul.
Maybe you're going to the foul line. I think if you're a Houston fan, that's where you got to have such a gripe waking up on this Tuesday morning.
The other thing I always question, too, I'm not a fan of this. I get it in the right situation, but when you got 19 seconds and you come into the forecourt and you sit there and you dribble the ball for 7 seconds, you're down 2. I would rather see them go into their basic motion, cutting, whatever offense you're going to run, and at least start some movement, because if the right defender jumps out to the right spot as you start to initiate your play with 10, 12 seconds to go, you're done.
Yeah, and I thought that they were done. And again, credit to Walter Clayton Jr. It was a fantastic closeout. I think people kind of take that for granted, and people are like, one shot fake and one shot and you're in history. But I also think you just got to let it go. If you get it blocked, that's fine. Flop. You might get a foul call, like whatever the case may be. You got to let the ball go. But I just thought that they overcomplicated it. You first of all, you don't walk it up, to Jeff's point. You bring it up with some urgency. Go 4 flat. Get 4 guys on the baseline. I'm going one-on-one, king of the hill. This is what you grow up on. It's my guy versus your guy. This is what everyone does in the gym. It's one-on-one basketball, and I trust that LJ Cryer, he might not score in that moment, but he will at least get a shot off. The dude got 17 shots up last night, and he's made big shots for you all year, so I just didn't like it. I like the guts to go for the three in the win.
Which I don't think that was I know that was the play, but Sampson made it pretty clear after the game that was not the intent in the huddle. The huddle was not like, just strictly go for three at all costs. Because sometimes you do get that, like especially with Cinderellas or teams on the road. They're like, hey, we can't survive in overtime. We're going to go for the win here or nothing else. I don't think that was the intent. And look, I mean, Houston didn't lose a Big 12 road game all year.
No,
I mean they didn't lose a conference road game all year. And watch that team in the final 90 seconds last night. Does that look like a team that was composed?
Tough.
I mean, it just.
Yeah. That's the pain of college basketball to me
amazing.
sometimes because I'm like, oh, like these
and
guys
Sampson
are so
said it
young.
early. I mean, he said it when Tracy Wolfson, I think, was interviewing him in that first media timeout or second media timeout. He's like, "You guys are nervous about the national championship. This isn't Sasquatch State or whatever the opponent was."
He said, "You're on it, Sasquatch State."
That he threw out there, and I think major credit to Elijah Martin, or excuse me, Will Richard for Florida. I mean, with Walter Clayton Jr. struggling, and I mean he was throwing up some bricks early on, and he had some turnovers that were super.
With 0 points in the first half.
Uncharacteristic. Really, Florida got him going to the rim, not necessarily shooting jumpers till that late three. But Will Richard, the transfer from Belmont, was outstanding and just kind of keeping Florida, in it there throughout the first half.
Also, real quick, I know we've talked about this a lot, Jeff, with the transfer portal, the loyalty. How about Elijah Martin? Spent 4 years at Florida Atlantic. They went to the Final Four a couple years ago, uses his grad transfer year, did it the right way, I guess, if you want to put quotations around right, used his post-grad year to go to Florida, wins the Natty, stays in the same state. So shout out to him. I don't know if you win or get another chance to go to the Final Four at Florida Atlantic, but you go to a powerhouse program and you get the job done, and you do it the more traditional transfer way that we've seen in the past versus now where you're up every year, it seems like.
He's strutting into the Florida locker room like all I do is win.
I mean,
right?
yeah, he's. I believe he's like the only player since they started tracking this to start for two different teams in the Final Four.
Will we be discussing 365 days from now Purdue's celebration on Georgia Street?
See what else they do. I like the Clough pickup. I like getting the big guy.
Is Braden Smith going to stay a Boilermaker?
Yeah.
We do have some Matt Painter audio. Maybe, Mark, we can get to that at some point.
I hope he wasn't watching last night and says, hey, I'm in the one shining moment. I'm good.
Some of these early 2026 odds and early 2026 rankings. And to no surprise, Purdue is very, very highly ranked. So, obviously, Houston played their home state last night. Purdue hoping that they can play in their home state coming up here in 12 months.
Braden Smith has to be like the early favorite for Player of the Year next year, right? Like, am I drinking the Kool-Aid too much or?
Yeah, I've tried. I don't know. Does Broome have eligibility? Does Clayton have eligibility? I mean, that's probably
true.
A smart bet, but in today's climate, I have no idea who still has eligibility and who doesn't.
That's also crazy too, right? Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's the thing too. Like, I think the only comment Maddie made to me last night before she went to bed was, "Could either of these teams beat an NBA team?" That was the thought that Maddie had, and when
wow.
When I told her no, I very emphatically. I did look out there and thought to myself, like, are any of these guys going to be that high at draft picks?
I don't see like a top 10.
I mean, I'm not like
pick out there,
addicted to the
was there?
NBA mock drafts, but like I don't think Florida and Houston are like littered with NBA draft talent either. So that was just kind of something that a lot of those UConn guys obviously got drafted very high. Zach Edey, of course, got drafted high. I don't know if you really got that out of this year's national championship game.
Were you kind of gentle when you said no? Or?
I don't know. It was probably too. Yeah. That's always a topic that I think is just so stupid.
We'll find out if Kevin's sleeping on the couch.
Right. I know.
My favorite thing is when you're watching a game. I was watching the women's championship with my wife the other day, and I think they get annoyed when we'll say things like maybe 30 seconds before the announcers start to say it. And it's just because we follow it, and we're thinking the same thing the announcers are thinking,
my mom
right?
always tells me to shut up when I'm watching
So
games with her.
my wife
but
will then
can't help it.
But she'll ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, and she revels in that.
My mom acts like I'm a ref. I'm like, look, I don't know the rules all that well. I just know that this is a penalty or this is a foul. So, yeah.
All right. Coming up in a minute, the guys will speak with Rick Carlisle about the Pacers down the stretch. Got a home game tonight. Stick around and listen for it right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
KB, JB, and Jeff.
That foul line has been a dilemma. They made the two big ones the other night. National championship is in the balance. 13 seconds left. Florida leads it by 2. Uzan got to go. Uzan, give it up. Cryer, 6 seconds, 5 seconds. Sharp. He walked. He can't touch it. He can't. 1 second. And it's over. Florida is back on top of the college basketball world. Championship madness. It's a great day to be a Gator.
We clearly have the best team in America. And in 3 short years in Gainesville, we got the basketball program back where it belongs, which is raising trophies, playing in Final Fours.
It's still surreal right now. I can't even lie, man. It's a great feeling.
It's incomprehensible. In that situation, we couldn't get a shot. I thought if we held Duke to under 70, we'd have a good chance to win. And I felt like if we held Florida under 70, we'd have a good chance to win. Saturday, we found a way to win. Tonight, maybe not so much.
We have the best backcourt in America. I think we have the best front court in America. And like we've done all year, we made plays when we needed the most. We guarded our butts off down the stretch, made every 50-50 winning play. The Gators are natty, baby. We got the natty, baby. We got the natty. Let's go!
And the big torch flaming, we burn so sweet, the thrill of victory.
What a Final Four it was. Certainly a national championship game to remember. Florida leads for just 64 seconds, but most importantly, they led when that final horn sounded in the Alamo Dome last night. They are your national champions. Good Tuesday morning to you. It is 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, and the Pacers are back inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight, winners of 12 of their last 13 at home. They will try to inch closer to securing some home court here coming up in round 1. To talk more about all of it, he is the head coach of the Pacers, and he joins us right now. Coach Rick Carlisle, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm okay. What's happening?
Did you consume the national championship last night?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts, I guess, on the Final Four as a whole? I know you were still busy with Denver prep maybe on Saturday, but what did you think of the game last night?
I mean, the games have been so great. I mean, it's so competitive, so close. Yeah, I mean, interesting that, Florida came back from deficits, I think, in their last 3 games. And as I was looking back and thinking back on Virginia's run in 2019, their last 3 games, they were playing from behind as well. And, the Virginia run was probably a little more, they were down. You look at the percentages to win and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they really pulled some miraculous stuff to win 3 games in a row, being behind late. And Florida's situation is not too much different. And so it just kind of speaks to the fact that in the NCAA tournament, there's a magical thing that can happen with a team. And Florida, certainly had some of that magic.
At times, I feel like we certainly are doing it today. We do it with your team as well. We psychoanalyze these end-of-game plays, end-of-game situations so much. You as a staff, do you find that you spend I don't know if I'm asking for a percentage. It's probably unfair to throw a number out there, but I guess how much time would you say you spend on end-of-game situations? How critical of a piece is that in your daily off-season type of prep?
Well, it's a big part of it, and because you're going to be in a lot of those situations. Our season this year, at the beginning, when we were having struggles, we went through a stretch of 10 or 12 games where almost every game was a clutch game, which I think means within a certain number of points in the last 5 minutes. And so, and we won a lot of those games. And to win those games, you need guys like Halliburton and Siakam that can make plays and that are fearless. And, you need other guys that, will step into shots fearlessly the same way. And so, it's an enormous part of it. And, in the NBA, you got a lot more games. And so, a lot more of those situations. And then you get into a playoff series, and it's not just a 1-game elimination. It's several years ago, it went to 7 games instead of 5 in the first round. And so the games are all close.
Rick, I think the number is 5 points in the last 5 minutes, makes it a clutch game. Had another clutch game the other day in Denver, and a guy who played pretty well, Myles Turner. I never get tired of it, but, I mean, 4 threes and 3 blocks. For the modern NBA, how valuable is he with just his skill set and what he's able to do night in and night out?
Well, the guys that can make threes and protect the rim are rare, and they're very valuable in today's game, especially because the rim is a very coveted part of your offense. I mean, good 3-point shots are something that everybody's looking for, but everybody's looking even more for great opportunities to attack the rim and get layups. I mean, the layup is the best shot in basketball. And so, if you have a 7-foot guy that can make threes and protect the rim, it's a very, very important part of the game.
Again, Rick Carlisle with the Sayer Pacers Wizards tonight inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Going back to Sunday as well, what did you think of your point guard and how Tyrese Halliburton handled really the constant double that Denver threw at him?
Just showed a ton of maturity, really. And teams are going to do that. They're going to commit 2 to the ball. They'll commit 2 to Pascal in the post. They'll commit 2 to Tyrese off pick and rolls, and they'll just say, hey, we're not going to let this guy beat us. And what he did was he analyzed the situation and decided to make it about execution and taking advantage of what was being thrown at him to get his teammates shots. So we got a lot of great shots off of double teams against him on pick and rolls. And, just about everybody on the team was a recipient at some point in time. And so he was tremendous there. Never got rattled, always level-headed, great leadership in the huddle. And, being able to win that game without Pascal was another part of it that was very special.
Do you just assume, like, that type of coverage? I know you don't know your opponent. You just assume that's the type of coverage he'll see nightly in the playoffs?
Don't assume anything. We haven't seen nearly as much double teaming in pick and rolls this year as we did last year. And part of the reason is that we were so good versus pick and roll traps. I don't know what our numbers were, but they were very, very high. It was probably 1.2 or 1.3 or maybe even higher. Like when you commit 2 of the ball out beyond the 3-point line, which in essence is what was, is what happens with him because he has such great range. You turn it into a 4-on-3 game inside the 3-point line, and you're able to get rim pressure in a lot of situations, and you're able to get late kickouts because rotating out of a double team from 28 or 29 feet, or maybe even 30 or 32, is difficult. So, you can't assume anything. You can't assume what you're going to see on any given possession. I mean, we've seen situations this year where NBA teams will go to big doses of zone defense in crunch time in the fourth quarter. Chicago has done that a lot this year. They've been on a pretty amazing run too, over the last month or so. And one of their part of their formula has been that, and they play from behind in a lot of games, and they've developed a very fast kind of game, but it's speed, and then it's playing out of zone defense late in games, and if you can get stops with zone, it's harder to match up against you. So that's just one example, but we saw a lot of really physical play with Tyrese, especially early in the year this year. Because teams did not want to commit to and get into rotation. And then, certain other teams have different philosophies, and many times it's certainly based on their personnel.
Rick, are you watching the standings as much as us? Probably more, I would think, as an NBA head coach. But what's the balance of staying in the moment, focusing on tonight's game, but also looking at the standings around you?
Well, there's so much talk about it. Even if you ignore it, you're going to hear about it. And so it's really impossible to ignore in large part. But, we just got to keep our eye on the ball. I mean, really, we've got to focus on process. We've got to focus on standards. This period of the last 10 or 12 games, whatever it's been, we've played a lot of lottery teams. I think going into the Denver game, we had played 7 out of 11 games versus teams that had sub 500 records. And so, we've had challenges against those teams at times because, all these teams with the not so good records are playing hard. They're attacking and playing free and just, letting the shots go. We saw it against Utah. We saw it against Charlotte last week. We'll see it again. We'll see it again tonight against Washington. And, we've had some hellaciously difficult games against Washington this year. The one right at the All-Star break is pretty well documented. We were down 19 in the third quarter and somehow got it tied at the end of regulation and won in overtime. The most recent game a couple of weeks ago was the one that where we made virtually every shot, and those are rare. And so, but after putting up 162 on them 12 or 13 days ago or whatever it was, I mean they're gonna come in here guns blazing. So look, we got to be ready, and a big part of what we're doing right now is we've got to be prepared for transition, because transition defense has become the most important coverage in the NBA. And it sounds like, it sounds like, well, how can that possibly be? I mean, isolations and pick and roll, and no, I mean, teams are getting the ball over half court. It's not just getting it over in 3 seconds anymore. Our goal is to get it over in 1 or 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds, to get it over, while the shot clock says 22. And you look around the league, and offensive numbers when teams get the ball over in 3 seconds or less versus when they don't are astronomically different. And so, your quality of offense has a great deal to do with how well you're going to defend defensively. And so shot quality is something that we're talking to our guys a lot about. In the Utah game last week, last Friday, we had a 2-point, I think we were down 2 at halftime. Our shot quality wasn't great. We had plays where we drove in and fell down, on the baseline. And when you drive and fall down or drive and get your shot blocked, I mean, those are plays that are almost impossible to recover from. I mean, you have to have real luck at the other end. And so shot quality, where you create the right shot with the right balance, is really key. And because our players are so they're so empowered in our system to be the creators of shots, it's a big responsibility for them. And so, we talk a lot about it.
4 to go for the Pacers begins tonight inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Rick Carlisle with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Coach, you closed with Jarris Walker the other night in Denver. Obviously, Pascal was out, but still, the volatility of Walker's minutes. I mean, we talked with you about it, a month ago when, he's playing in a G League game, and then one of your more impressive regular season wins all year, you stuck with him and went back to him to close out that game. What have you seen from his growth here as of late that has kind of earned that responsibility?
Well, I disagree on one count here. He's played over 1,000 minutes this year, and he's averaging over 15 minutes a game. And so, the notion that his minutes have been, all over the place, I think is a stretch, and I don't think it's accurate. And Mathurin is the other guy that there's a lot of talk about. Matherin's averaging 30 minutes a game, and he started 40 some games. I mean, you guys tell me what it is. And so these guys have played a lot. It's been much more consistent that Walker's been in the rotation this year than he hasn't. And so the expectation is that, these guys these guys grow with their professionalism. They become ready for anything. One of the curses for a young player on a deep team with a lot of depth at their position is that, at times things can be inconsistent with minutes. The blessing is that you learn the value of playing your minutes to the highest possible level. And I think that's one thing that Jairus has really done this year. And so while his minutes haven't been exactly the same all the time, he's been in virtually every game. It doesn't have a lot of DNP CDs. And so that's been great experience for him. And I believe because of that, he's developed a much greater appreciation for the responsibility of being a professional, being ready to play. And what he did the other night was he earned the right to go back in the game because he was playing solidly defensively. His shot making was very good, and he played with a physical presence. So real proud of him. And, so as we're going down the stretch here, all these opportunities for our younger guys, especially guys like Jairus and Ben that did not play in the playoffs last year or played very sparingly, is super important.
You talked about being proud, Rick. Last one from me, Aaron Nesmith, another guy I'm sure you're very high on based off his season. 51, 43, 92 are his splits right now. And I don't know if he'll get officially in the 50, 40, 90 club because of the volume of free throws he would need. However, judging off of the injury he had to recover from to where he is now, what he's meant to you just as a person as well, what's the joy of just seeing him play at this level?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, he really exemplifies what we're doing here and what we're trying to do here as an organization. I mean, this is high character people, love of the game, love of being a part of something bigger than themselves. Great teammate, guy that the first couple of years with Boston got some opportunities, but it just wasn't happening because of the way their roster was set up. And then he comes here. He arrives at the airport in the summer after the trade and asks if he can play in the summer league. So, I mean, he jumped right into our summer league situation out in Vegas, and he played 3 or 4 games in the summer league and played his butt off. And we didn't know for sure what we were getting because we had seen him here and there like everybody else had, but we didn't really know what was happening. And what he showed us was just an unbending commitment to team. And, he could obviously shoot the ball athletically. He's one of those high level athletes and they can guard multiple positions. And so, he's been through a lot. The thing with Boston, not getting a ton of minutes right away. And then, some injury stuff too. I mean, he overcame, an injury in college to get drafted in the first round, and then this year the thing with the ankle was kind of a freaky thing, but he ended up having to miss 2.5 months, and then his comeback was gradual. Started off with a couple of first half shutdowns, easing back into it the right way. Was able to get some games in before All-Star break, and that really helped him. And so. He's having a great stretch here.
Again, winners 12 of their last 13 at home. The Pacers got 3 left inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse this season as they try to clinch home court coming up. Rick Carlisle with us here on a game day, Pacers Wizards. Coach, as always, thank you for the time. We'll end with this. It amazes me night in and night out how he does it seemingly every single game. The other night, TJ McConnell, another steal in the backcourt. I want to say that one actually led to Tyrese Halliburton hitting a 3. I guess, A, what is it about McConnell that he is able to do that nightly? And B, does it ever surprise you that it still works?
Yeah, I mean, these are such great questions. And, this is something that you don't teach really. I mean, you teach. Just thinking about it, you would be teaching a guy to gamble in the backcourt, and go for a steal. And, if it doesn't work, then you're turning a guy loose on the break. But somehow he times it, and he's able to do it in an unassuming way. And, he closes that gap, like a defensive back in football so quickly. And it seemingly does it while the guy, after the guy's already caught the ball at times too. And so I just think it's something that's very rare that players have that kind of sixth sense and can do that and do it effectively. And he has fun with it. I mean, when somebody else on our team pulls it off, like Shepard will get one every once in a while, or somebody else will get, or Aaron Nesmith will get one, or Tyrese or something like that, and he'll yell out, stay out of my bag, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's one of the things that makes our group, a special group. I mean, there's a level of fun that these guys have with what they're doing and how much they care about each other. And look, that's I think one of the reasons that our fans have taken to this group so much over the last 2.5, 3 years. And we gotta try to ride this thing out the right way and get some momentum going into the playoffs.
Need a McConnell highlight reel of just those plays. Put that on an endless loop for Max Bowen to watch.
They'll all look the same.
Yeah. I mean, he had one the other night where he threw it over the top of his head. It seemed like right to Shepard for a late. It's just the wherewithal not to just make the steal, Coach. It seems like every time he also is able to save it or like get it to an advantage offensive player right away.
Yeah, listen. It's as I said, and as you guys have noted. I mean, this is just it's a rare skill. It's a rare ability, and it's one of the things that endears people to him because he just goes so hard.
Yeah, amen to that. Pacers-Wizards game, 79, I guess it is, of the season. They have played very good basketball here as of late inside of the building. They'll try to do it again tonight. Coach, the regular season combos coming to a close. We'd love to continue them in the postseason.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care.
That's Rick Carlisle right there, Payless Liquors Hotline.
Stay out of my bag.
I love that. I can see McConnell. McConnell's low. I don't even know if it's low key, frankly. He's probably one of the bigger talkers on the team, right?
Yeah, you know what? I talk about this all the time with
Tony. And
Tony
he talks to everybody, by the way.
Tony always points this out to
coaches,
me at games.
fans,
Yes. Yeah. He's like, why does every player in the league, one, engage with TJ McConnell?
I think he's the instigator.
But they also seem to have this isn't like Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green where it's like, I hate this guy. There's like a certain level of like, you're annoying me, but there's a mutual respect there because.
Like a little brother.
Yes. I guarantee you it'll happen tonight. Almost every game, every team, there's somebody on the team that probably loves them a little TJ McConnell because of his fight and competitive nature. Respect to him.
Gosh, major. I love that Arizona, put them into their ring of honor for playing in the league for 10 years. I thought that was kind of a cool thing of not just a great player here. If you go to the NBA and you have that type of career,
undrafted,
you deserve,
no less.
Yeah, undrafted, certainly. If you've missed it, the Joel Ericson story on Braden Smith is filled with vulnerability, vivid detail, just tremendous reporting. Joel's going to join us coming up here at 9 o'clock. We've touched on that. We'll continue to do so leading up to the 9 o'clock hour conversation with Joel. Before that, Mark Dykton, let's cue it up.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. 2025-26 season tickets are on sale now. Registration for iconic Hinkle Fieldhouse premium seats runs through May 31st. Don't miss Hinkle Magic. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
I think at one point Gus Johnson uttered the phrase, or maybe it was Tim Brando, the Butler did it again, to describe Butler coming back in another NCAA tournament win. One of those was against Florida. I think it would be fitting to say Florida did it again. On the brink of it last night, somehow they found a way. And James Boyd, I want to say Houston just turned it over again.
Yeah, it hurt me not to get a shot off at the end, but they literally had, a couple of breaks go their way throughout the tournament. I know they're one against Purdue, the push off, the no call, all those things. And
questionable call against Cooper Flag.
Yeah, you got to be a little lucky, I guess, as well to get to the end there. But just they kind of they got Houston at the end.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Florida led for 64 seconds the entire night. Houston had 9 turnovers in the game, very reasonable number. 4 of them, though, in the final 90 seconds. Oof. And as James pointed out, they did not get a shot off at all. Up 1, turnover. Down 1, turnover. And then at the end, down 2, turnover as well. Incomprehensible is a word Kelvin Sampson used post-game. I think it's very accurate to describe what happened there late. Again, Pacers in action tonight. They are a massive favorite, 18.5 points. And James Boyd, you like the Pacers to cover 18.5. The 3rd biggest spread in the NBA this season.
I'm sorry. I don't
trust.
Mark
Dykton is going against you. This is betting 101, right?
It's not me going against James. It's me going against that point spread because that is a massive number. I don't care.
This is kind of like my NFL thought. If it ever gets to 2 touchdowns in the NFL, you have to take the underdog. If it gets to 18 in the NBA, don't you have to take the underdog?
I don't even want to take that. I don't even want to. Because that's me putting faith in the Wizards, which I don't want to do either. So no, I'm not touching that number. I'm not doing anything. So I would not touch that game whatsoever. James, if you want to.
Sounds like a boring Tuesday night.
Well, I'm sorry.
They lost by 34 the other night. What was it, 22
Did
the
you
night
hear
before that?
Rick just mentioned they had a big lead on them during right before the All-Star break.
Man, I'm looking at this 162 to 109, and I expect them to be holding the ball again at the end of the game because they're up by a million. I don't think the Wizards can do anything right as an organization. There's some good young pieces there, but I don't think anything is ever going to happen to them ever because they're the Wizards and they've been bad pretty much my entire life.
Looks decent.
He looks decent, but I mean, go somewhere else to continue your career, young man.
Major League Baseball.
Get the hell out of here.
Yes.
Mark and I are happy the Cubs and Reds win. I don't think we've said that yet this season. Hunter Green, outstanding 8 2/3 last night for the Red Legs. Colts local pro day coming up at 10. James will exit a little early for that. That's probably it on my end. Myles Colvin to Wake Forest. Nigel Pack to Oklahoma in portal season. Butler with Michael Ajay. Had a huge season at Pepperdine before transferring to Gonzaga. We'll see if Butler can drum up a little bit of that. And the Indy 500 craze continues. Saw yesterday announced they have sold out parking for the 500. They continue to be ahead of grandstand tickets. So this is looking like the biggest 500 crowd since the 100th running in 2016. IndyCar back in action this weekend at Long Beach.
Well, here's some news for you. Olivia Myles.
Did I see TCU for
TCU.
TCU seems to be the new I'm trying to think of the men's program that gets all the transfers.
I don't know. That's a good way to look at it.
And TCU's not UConn or Tennessee or Notre Dame or Stanford, some of these traditional women's programs that have been outstanding. But yeah, Olivia Myles, one of the stars at Notre Dame from last season, off to TCU, where Haley Van Lith, of course, transferred last.
Yep, and had a ton of success last season.
All right, on the other side, much more on the Colts. Again, the Braden Smith story. We'll catch up with Joel Ericson coming up at 9 o'clock.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I don't know how you do this without, like, bobbing your head or moving your shoulders a little bit, Mark.
Because I know what I'm playing.
Yeah, I know.
I know what I'm playing.
But still, you feel that's like laughing at your own joke or something?
I laugh at my own jokes all the time. What are you
James
talking
and I
about?
are over here instinctively. We're just kind of like bopping up and down.
I'm the most hilarious dad of all time. I told my kids yesterday, I was like, you know how lucky you are that you get to have me as a dad, and I get to entertain you all the time?
Are you going playoff beard?
I just haven't shaved since we got back from Disney, and Ashley's not complaining about it. So
there you go.
Okay.
Say no more.
Seasoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever?
I like it, Mark.
I've never seen the full beard with you. Have you ever done that?
I think when the I was an idiot back in the day. I was like, the Blackhawks, a playoff beard. Got to grow the playoff beard. My brothers and I did that, so we did that for a while, and I looked like a maniac, but that's okay.
It's true. You'd be proud of me, Kevin. Stayed up last night to watch the game and the one shining moment and everything like that, and I'm dying today because I'm tired, but I took a page out of your book. I took the shower and shaved in the afternoon yesterday, knowing that I could get that extra 25 minutes this morning.
Look at that. So I actually showered this morning, but you did not shower. Now, I was disappointed
I went to bed clean, you know what I'm saying?
Sure, I was disappointed we didn't get the Myles Colvin dunk in one shining moment.
Give me a basketball play. I'm
so
like
basically
the Braden Smith chest pound.
We got our boy from McNeese, Amir. Yeah. He obviously led it. That was kind of the big thing. I had forgotten about the play-in game, the full court heave. Was that Alabama State, maybe?
Alabama State, I think it was.
Obviously, we didn't have a lot of Cinderella buzzer beater moments. Certainly the Derek Queen moment. If you're a Purdue fan, you'll get a Braden Smith, pound of the chest there. I think that was in their Sweet 16 game, I believe, in their comeback against Houston there. They certainly slowed it down for the Houston inbounder to win the game, so you probably won't want to watch much of that afterwards. But honestly, it's a tournament that I think will largely be remembered for one of the greatest Final Fours ever from an entertainment standpoint. As much as we didn't get Cinderella, and I lamented the buzzer beaters we didn't get in the early rounds, if you would have told me we'd get 3 games in the Alamo Dome looking like that, boy, it's hard to argue.
The NCAA basketball gods are up to going, be patient.
I know.
Just be patient. I got you covered.
Yeah.
This tournament's not a wash.
Yeah.
But everybody was giving up on the tournament before coming out of the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. People were like, to your point, Kevin, there's no dramatic finishes. There's been very few buzzer beaters, very few upsets. What we got, though, was what I always love, a clash of the Titans. It was a heavyweight bout, 3 games in a row, and it was on your edge entire second half drama that you just can't get most of the time with everything on the line.
Yeah, I enjoyed all the games. I was on the edge of my seat for all the games. And I just always think about the fan bases. Like, man, the joy you must feel if you're a Florida Gators fan, Anthony Richardson among them. I would be on cloud 9 this morning. But if I'm a Houston fan, like, does anybody go to work in Houston? I'm not going to work.
I think Kelvin Sampson still has that very confused look on his face. That
Yeah.
shocked, confused look.
That
after the
look,
last...
I thought, summed up everything. I thought that was the perfect picture to sum up what I felt watching Houston the final 90 seconds. Like, okay, you have the one turnover when you're up 1. All right, whatever. College. Again, this is a team that didn't lose a road game all year in the Big 12. Then you have the second turnover. And I'm like, oh, boy. Then I'm thinking, okay, they've now taken a timeout. Didn't we get a stoppage at one point? I felt like there was a long break before the final 19 seconds. I thought, no way, shape, or form they're going to turn it over again. They'll at least throw something up there. Let those ferocious rebounders they have try to get one more hand on it and see what can happen. Tugler will come down with it. I don't know, maybe Tugler was fouled out at that point. Francis will come down with it. Wilson will somebody will come down with it, and they'll get a desperation look, and yet they didn't even get a final shot off. And I think that's why, James, you brought this up to start the show. I think that's why Walter Clayton Jr. had the reaction he did. I'm sure Walter Clayton Jr. is a nice dude, but I almost felt like when that final horn sounded, there was a little bit of damn, I feel bad for them a little bit. That's how it ended. You didn't even get the opportunity to attempt the shot. Not down 2, not down 1, not up 1. Florida didn't make a shot in the final 3 minutes of the game, and they won.
Yeah.
Think about that. Florida didn't make a field goal in the final 3 minutes of the game, and they win.
And you got a bit of a break because they split the free throws. So instead of being up 3,
missed that first one,
where they could possibly foul you and basically stop you from tying the game, they can't foul you because you're only up 2. And so Sharp. I feel for you. That's a tough image. It'll be an image that will certainly be played in your mind for the rest of your life, just wishing that you could rewind time. But that is the beauty and pain of sports, and why I love it so much, and why I hate it so much at times is because of moments like that where you're just wishing you had just another chance to redo it. But thought it was classy for Walter Clayton Jr. to go over and hug him. I will say, if I am Sharp, who is a better class act than me, I'm stiff arming that man. Get away from me. You're the reason I didn't get the shot off. Now you want to come hug me? Wait, you want to rub it in my face, man? But I will say, I know he'll be remembered for that play and the turnover before that, but he made some big shots down the stretch as well.
Late, yeah.
It certainly wasn't gun shy, which is, again, just adds to the pressure of the moment and just the pain of it, because it's like you hadn't been gun shy all year and then you don't get the shot up. You don't even get the shot up. And as the ball is like bouncing, I'm thinking to myself, like, is anybody else going to run over to go get it? Do you just touch it to keep the game going? Like, I don't know. That was – the ball's bouncing, and that's probably your lead.
And you know that's in slow motion from their viewpoint, right?
I know. And so for the non-writers out there, when I say lead, that is the first part of our story. How do we start the story? That's the image. The ball is bouncing, and you can't touch it.
Yeah, Sharp probably has the image, just the helpless feeling of, guys, I can't touch the ball in this situation
but he
here.
did a nice job boxing out.
And the clock is just ticking off. So, yeah, just amazing. And a little bit reminiscent to last year's national title in that Purdue shot it so well all year long. Arguably their worst shooting night of the year in the national title game. Houston, what was Houston from three? Like 6 of 20-something or other? I mean, again, Houston had been this great three-point shooting team all season, and then that happens in the biggest game of the year.
You bring that up because in the first 6-7 minutes of the game, Houston couldn't hit a shot, and Florida kept turning the ball over. And I thought it was interesting.
Neither team could hit a three there for a while.
Right, but what I thought was interesting, coming out of timeouts, they do the coaches' interviews. Both coaches cited nervousness for their kids at the beginning of that game. Kelvin Sampson was asked about the shooting. It was like, hey, they're nervous. They'll come around. They'll get into the flow. And then Todd Golden was talking about all the turnovers, and he said, they're just nervous right now. They're going to be okay.
I mean, Clayton threw up some bricks there early on.
Oh, he was building a house.
Oh, I mean, that was
a rough first half.
That was some Indiana limestone.
So it was a rough first half for him. I don't know. Limestone's pretty then.
Would you guys say that this March Madness was a success, or was it too chalky for you? Because that was the big talk going in to the Final Four. And it's too chalk. It's all number ones. There aren't the upsets that we were getting. But I thought there were some hell of a games down the stretch that made it entertaining. Yes, you don't want number one seeds every single year, but I thought this was a pretty good tournament.
I might be in the minority where I'm like, I don't care what seed they are. It can be all number one seeds every year for all I care if the games are great.
Yeah.
So I would just say it maybe didn't have the overall entertainment value, because there were a couple of games where I'm like, man, there's not that crazy buzzer beater or the crazy upset. But when it came down to like money time and when the most eyes are going to be on this sport, it was very good TV.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. As much as when I think of the tournament, I think of Cinderella. I think of the buzzer beaters. That to me is more than like a great Final Four game. Sure, a great Final Four game's awesome. But when I have no rooting interest and we get to Saturday night and we get to Monday and that's all we're watching, I mean, look at the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
Like there's all this build up to the anticipation, and that's what like national championship game. For a lot of people, Notre Dame has a great opening drive, and then Ohio State dominates the next 2.5 quarters, and probably 90% of the audience was asleep when Notre Dame made their comeback. So, like, for the standalone games, give me entertainment. So, yeah, as much as I hated the lack of it in the early rounds, Mark, to your point, it probably made up for it at the end. I don't want this to be the norm, just because I still like my March Madness with Cinderella and buzzer beaters, et cetera, but at the same time, literally, you had Auburn had the lead in the final media timeout on Saturday night. Duke had the lead at the final media timeout on Saturday night. And Houston had the lead at the final media timeout last night. And all three of those teams lost. I mean, you can't script that.
No.
If they had just a, like they do in soccer, round robin, right? Those Final Four, and they all play each team.
Oh, boy.
How many?
Everybody
what's
wins
everybody's
two.
Record, right?
Yeah.
They'd go 2-2.
Everybody wins at least two.
Well, but to give credit to Florida, they're the ones that came from behind in crunch time. Back-to-back games.
I mean, that's what was the
go
most
back to
alarming
round
part.
two. I mean,
yeah.
Again, I don't know how many people watched that Sunday game, but it was a standalone game. UConn and Florida. I mean, UConn had them on the ropes. I mean,
yeah,
Dan Hurley reacted in the way he did for a reason. Like, UConn was right there. Remember Texas Tech missed the 2 front ends of the 1-on-1 in the Elite Eight, and I think it was Clayton or maybe it was Haug. Somebody came down, hit a couple threes there. So, yeah, I mean, Florida was, cardiac Gators. I mean, it was, 4 of their 6 games, they were on the brink of losing, very, very late in all those.
I will say, I think that Walter Clayton Jr., I wouldn't put it on the same level as the Shabazz Napier, Kemba Walker run, but it definitely belongs in that conversation of great.
He didn't throw the cherry on top. But
he didn't have the great finishing performance.
Without him, they don't sniff San Antonio.
Yeah, but even without him last night in that second half, they don't win that game.
He hit a couple big and ones.
Yeah, I mean, the layup, I was like, man, how long are you going to stay in the air? He had some hang time on that one. So it was cool to see him have that moment. And again, shout out to his mom. I love you, girl.
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll take a look at.
I was so confused when he said that.
I was like, okay, I'll roll with that. He's celebrating. We'll talk about the Pacers and what they have to do down the stretch, and are they getting help from the teams behind them? We'll talk about it next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
College basketball season is really over? The NCAA men's tournament is really over?
Hell of an ending, I will say. I wasn't upset about – well, I was upset with not getting a shot off, but the theater of the last 3 games was amazing.
Good for you, though, Kevin Bowen, because the Pacers play tonight, and you'll have something to do before you can watch all the festivities before the actual tournament starts on Wednesday, and that should tide you over and get you to early Thursday. I know, but what I'm saying is you can bide your time tonight with a basketball game.
Oh, okay.
You can watch all the stuff they do on Golf Channel tomorrow from the greens and the putting and the par 3, all that stuff. And then that should tide you over. So when you wake up and come to work somewhere during the early parts of our program, the tournament starts.
Do you guys think I'm psychotic in that I watched the 2019 highlight reel from Tigers' win, waiting for the national championship game to tip off last night? It's probably the 3700th time I've watched it.
No, I love to watch moments or rewatch moments that I love in history. Like, for example, I'll go back and watch when the Cleveland Cavaliers won Game 7 because it just seemed so improbable to me at the time. And I was praying on LeBron James's downfall, and I just couldn't believe it. They did not lose one more game in that series. So I enjoy it. Like Game 1 of the 2001 finals, Allen Iverson, 48 points. There's certain moments where I'm like, and I wasn't really old enough to understand that in real time, but going back and rewatching it is always fun.
Tiger Woods chip in on 16 is I watch it annually. Like I feel like that's
annually.
I don't know about you guys. If you have like regular sports clips you go back and watch, that's one of them.
Honestly, the scene, Mark, certainly. The scene walking off the green in 2019 and Nance laying out for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You know, Nance says something to the effect of return to glory. Again, I'm so psychotic. I watched it 12 hours ago. And then the scene with his son, the scene with his daughter, you know, walking up that hill, everyone chanting Tiger. I mean, we're not used to that at Augusta National at all. I even enjoy once he gets to the clubhouse, you know, a lot of players waiting for him up there. So I challenge us, and maybe tomorrow, I know we're busy and we want to get back to the Braden Smith story here in just a second. That would be Colts Braden Smith, Purdue fans, not your Braden Smith. I say we do a Masters draft. I say we do a 3-round Masters draft, very similar to our backup quarterback draft. I'd like to think the names might have a little bit more cachet in the Masters draft than the backup quarterback. We'll challenge some golf knowledge here.
I'm an expert.
And I say we, snake it up here. 3-man teams, add up total score, and the best man wins.
Oh, I'm winning.
Sure.
I'm winning.
Do we get anything to win here? Are we doing road trip snacks again, or what are we talking here?
We should simmer on that.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's
the road
think
trip
about
snacks
this.
got a little awkward there. Jeff and you, it was a little tension. And
yeah, I thought you were going to send the henchman out for a second.
I've still been promised hot fries that he says he still has too.
Oh.
Did anyone else give you the 10-pack?
No, but you said you still had hot fries for me too.
Did anyone give you the 10-pack on time?
No, but you mentioned you had hot fries. You had to get me.
I just haven't thought. You know what? I was lucky this morning that my eyes were opening up after you were trolling me on social media last night.
Well, that game was worth staying up for.
The time of that tweet.
Aren't you glad you stayed awake?
I did. Well, I couldn't help it. I was hoping that a game would keep me awake.
There you go. Well, let's just make an agreement. You got to hand over the bet in person. There's something to it. You got to eat it, Jeff. I mean, my dad, we bet things when I was a kid. And still to this day, you gotta take it into the face.
Well, I had other things that I had to do that morning, and so did you get your stuff in time for the trip?
I got it in time. Yeah, I got it almost on the knock on my door and an Amazon Prime package to my door.
Did I also did I even check to make sure you got it before you left?
You did, yes. I said delivery. You are off the hook.
Man, oh man.
For now.
Well, don't worry about it. You ain't got to worry about it. No. I'm winning this anyway. I'm winning this anyway.
Houston play defense here. Just got a little sweaty.
This is going to be like when your kids fill out their brackets and they have no idea what they're doing and they're better than your bracket. This is going to be me, okay? I know like 3 golfers outside of Tiger Woods, and I'm going to win.
My wife and middle daughter both picked Florida, so they were hanging that over my head yesterday. But now this is on Kevin, though, I think, because if Kevin doesn't win this, and 3 schlubs are winning the golf thing.
I want you guys to be a part of it. Like, I run a big Masters pool, and I don't even enter it. I'm just so sick that I just want people to enjoy the event that I love. And I appreciate James Boyd in particular, because, Jeff, I know you enjoy golf a little bit more. I appreciate James embracing it a bit. So thank you for that, James.
I'm trying.
One thing you guys talk about going back and visiting great moments. I will say this. My social media feed has figured me out. Kevin, I'll share videos with you every once in a while, but all day long, I am just gifted historic moments or parts of documentaries or things like that. Yeah, because, again, the feed understands me. I get a lot of history. I get a lot of sports history. I get a lot of cool stuff.
Their algorithm or whatever they have is fantastic. They actually give you stuff that you want to watch. 'Cause I told you mine is current sports, older sports, cooking, and like home flips.
Yeah,
it's
everybody's got
great life over there in TikTok.
Oh, God.
It's like a middle-aged woman with some of those.
Say what you want.
Right there. Two notes on the Masters. If you want to consume any of the Masters coverage this week and you're a little bit of a golf sicko, you have to download the Masters app.
Oh,
there's a Masters app?
Oh, yeah.
You have to download the Masters app.
Outstanding.
The TV coverage does not do it justice. You're only going to get about 4, maybe 5 hours a day of TV coverage. It's honestly worthless is being too harsh. You got to have the Masters app. It is so good. It's free. You get so much more
you can watch video,
coverage,
a lot of amen corner action
that you wouldn't get without it. So I would say certainly do that.
So let me ask you and Jeff, is this an app that stays on your phone the entire year?
No, I downloaded it. I think it was last Thursday.
Okay, so it's like the ESPN tournament
like 5
app.
years.
I mean, honestly, I need to delete the March Madness app today.
Oh, I deleted it last night.
Yeah.
Especially I did. Well, usually I wait a little while.
Boom.
But
deleted.
since Houston, which was my pick, ended in that fashion, I just furiously deleted the.
So it was a rage delete.
Yes, the bracket was busted long before that, but it officially got busted last night.
And I do think too, like, I think the fact that we go back to this course on an annual basis, like Mark just brought up Tiger's chipping on 16. I mean, to some people, Jeff, maybe your age group, it's Nicholas's yes sir putt on 17 and 86.
For me, it's both, because I kind of was younger when the Nicklaus thing happened, but really in the prime of watching golf when Tiger did.
And some people would say, hey,
covering it.
I'm a Mickelson guy. It's hitting out of the pine straw on 13. Or you go back to Fred Couples' ball staying on the hill on 12 when seemingly every ball rolls back into Race Creek. Yeah. Like the fact that the back nine creates holes, and Will Haskett hit on this with us yesterday, that you have these historical moments. I think that's what in a way, like, I don't know, Indianapolis 500, will people now look at turn 3 and be like, man, remember when New Garden Pass pot on the outside of turn 3? When you get that on an annual basis, I think that's what makes the Masters such a unique event.
All right, we'll talk more about that. And Joel Ericson, who wrote a very comprehensive, very touching, deep piece with Braden Smith and his wife, who obviously volunteered and were a part of this process. It wasn't like Joel went and dug something up and released it without anybody's permission or anything like that. They had some incredible things to say because they want to shed insight and let people know what goes on in real life, even for the big and strong and seemingly vulnerable. So we'll talk about that next as we continue the Fan Morning Show, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, 9 o'clock hour here on what has been a very busy Tuesday. Obviously, recapping another drama-filled game in the Final Four. Florida leads for 64 seconds, and they led at the most important part of the game as Houston turns it over time and time again. Florida is your national champion. Enjoyed the Rick Carlisle combo. That'll be up on the podcast. Hit on several different topics with him. Pacers back inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight. And Joel Ericson from the Star is about to join us. And James Boyd, I think, first I was struck by the vulnerability in Braden Smith in telling this story because I was curious if and when we would ever hear it from, I would say, one of the quietest players I've ever covered with the Colts. This is not a Darius Leonard personality, a Zaire Franklin personality, just super outspoken. And then just a major credit, and you and I probably can speak to this fairly well, just unbelievable work by Joel Ericson as well. I mean, for Braden to obviously trust Joel and the Colts, I think to trust Joel to produce this story, it's tremendous journalism from Joel Ericson.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about this field is when someone drops a great story, especially on your beat, you're like, one, dang, this guy beat me. But two, in this scenario, it necessarily isn't even about getting beat. It is getting the story right and getting it out there, and no matter who shares it. I think Joel is a great person to share this kind of story. Did a fantastic job of it, and I could tell he did a ton of research because in this story is a ton of research about the drugs that Braden Smith, tried to use or has used to help with his OCD.
Prescription drugs.
Yeah, prescription drugs. His family issues that he dealt with, his wife opening up. So a lot of this stuff is very in depth, and I believe he's on our line now. So I guess we'll toss it over to Joel from Indy Star. So Joel Ericson, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. I will say I normally don't read when I get up at 5:45 in the morning, or at least not read thoroughly. But I was like, man, this guy's making me read this early in the morning. So Joel, I appreciate that.
He had me wide-eyed.
Yeah, seriously.
At 5 a.m. this morning.
Thank you for that, Joel.
I saw somebody. I saw the story get posted. I'm getting the crust out my eye. Like, hold on, this is like really good. So, Joel, can you maybe, for those who don't understand how the story even came together, if you can provide some insight to that, I think that'll explain why you were able to tell it in such depth, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just that, from my standpoint, I don't even really feel like I'm telling it. It's Braden's story and Courtney's story, and they want to tell their story so that other people who are dealing with mental health issues or struggling or don't know what to and don't know how to tell people, don't know how to ask for help, all that stuff. They want them to see it coming from somebody else. So they reached out, and yeah, we did the interview, and then it's just a trying to put, their words into something narrative, essentially.
And Joel Ericson with us from the Star. Not only Joel's work, I believe Clark Wade video in encompassing Courtney Smith and Braden Smith telling their story. Joel, I highly encourage everyone, obviously, to read it. I know your ego doesn't want to be necessarily put in the public, but unbelievable journalism by you. I guess to just kind of summarize it a little bit here, this is something that Braden Smith has been dealing with, an OCD that is involved from a religious angle, and he had been dealing with this dating back to early 2024, and it got to a point, just around Thanksgiving where he felt like he needed to remove himself from the team. Is that kind of the, Cliff Notes version of it?
Yeah, essentially. So the diagnosis is that he's had OCD probably his whole life. They said, I think, in the story it says this, but at least going back to at least third grade, and then that's just where the psychologist can trace it to, but it didn't become a debilitating or significant issue until it took on this form of religious scrupulosity, which Braden explains as there's the real God that he believes in, and and then there's this OCD God that he had that he said was very like condemning and looking at everything he did, and essentially ready to slap him on the wrist was the way he put it. But the OCD itself, it can be traced back further than that. It's just that this specific form of it became very dangerous.
Joel Ericson of the Indianapolis Star joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. So they reach out to you, you get the thing together, you go with them, you speak with both Braden Smith and his wife, you write the story, you put it to bed. What are the lasting thoughts you have now that it's all done and dusted?
I just number one, the courage of the Smiths to put it out there, and to be this honest about this story and what they were dealing with last year. I know I'm a journalist, but full disclosure, I don't know if that would be my instinct in this case. And then I think the other thing is just, realizing that we need to understand that, like, what you've heard about different mental health issues or what you are aware of isn't close to the full scope of things, and we probably need to give room for that, because I had never heard of religious scrupulosity before. I wasn't aware that it was a piece of OCD, and as soon as Braden started describing it, it made a lot of sense why that would be so difficult, and get him to the place that he got to. But it's something I'd never heard of, and if you look it up, there's dozens of different types of OCD, and I would guess that most people probably think of it in one specific way, and it's not anywhere near, like one of the things Braden said was, you think of OCD as an outward thing, and really it's an internal battle. And there's more going on internally than even the people who have outward signs.
So, Joel, I know I make the joke all the time that I'm not married and don't have kids and all those things, but in all seriousness, I think a big part of this story is Courtney Smith. It is Wyatt, and it is those parts of his life that he still wants to be here for. So what was it like to hear from her and to have her, I don't want to say maybe balance isn't the right word, but to add just more authenticity or clarity to the totality of the situation, because I'm sure there's things that she shared in this story, which we read through, that maybe Braden himself couldn't really feel or see because he wasn't experiencing her side of it. So how important was it to have her perspective in the story?
Well, I think that the story actually starts with her. She's the first words in it, and that was a conscious choice, because Braden's first quote in there is, "I really wasn't there," and this is something that she was trying to navigate with him. She was trying to figure out what's best for her husband. For a long time, football seemed like the best thing because he'd always been a part of it, and how do you get there? And then obviously then you have a young one. Wyatt was not yet 1 year old for almost the entirety of this. For people who aren't married, I don't think you realize that how intertwined your lives are. But I think it was really important for her to be a part of this story, not just because of her giving perspective, but also because, and I think she would say this as well, people who are going through this and their loved ones are going to be the ones who have to make some of these decisions. So having her as be a part of it is also there for the people who have loved ones dealing with something that is getting beyond what they've experienced or what they can control.
Joel, it sounds like the Colts were very supportive throughout this entire process. They talk about kick the stigma and all those kinds of things, but it sounds like they have been there for him throughout all of this.
Yes. In fact, I believe it's in the story, but Braden Braden talked to some other NFL team or some other NFL players, current and former, during his treatment in Colorado, and he didn't offer up any of their stories without their permission or anything. But he did say like it's not that same way everywhere. And I do think that there is a way where Courtney made this point. The Colts know Braden. Obviously, the Colts have the Colts have the Kicking the Stigma initiative. Like this is an organization built around mental health, but they also know Braden. They know how he works. They know they have a long history with him. So as things got worse and he couldn't go to meetings, that kind of thing, they were supportive of him. She brought up, what if it's a player who's a rookie going through something like this? And, to a team, it could look like, flakiness or something. It's hard to use that in terms of what we know about Braden Smith's story. But if she's thinking of it from like a what if this is a player that people don't know and they're going through this and they don't have someone to call the team and say, hey, they're going through this. So the Colts are obviously a big part of this, and being supportive and allowing Braden Smith to do that without, there's a lot of things that could happen without demonizing him in the media, without taking it too far. Like they helped, they did help in this scenario.
Yeah, saw Kaylin Jackson, the youngest Irsay daughter, retweeted your story. She obviously is, huge when it comes to the Kicking the Stigma campaign. So clearly it's resonated at the top of the Colts organization. Again, Joel Ericson with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Joel, did how much did the word retirement come up in your conversation with Courtney and Braden?
It was really just as it's in the story, but that's really the one time, and that was how Courtney knew something was going really, really wrong. That was if I remember right, in her words, that was when she knew like it was time to go to a psychologist, because that's not who her husband is. Like, her husband loves football, and my understanding is that going into last year, Braden felt beyond the knee injury. He hasn't had. My understanding is that Braden hasn't had any of like the major, surgeries or things that have like you think of as like having really, really bad lasting impact. But he felt like he had a chance to get like a really healthy season. He wasn't going to have some of the nagging stuff he'd had the years before, and then he had this. So that's part of it, is that the fact that he said he might have to retire, that was what told her something's really wrong, because he would not feel this way.
I don't know how much you want to share, and I think James might have asked you this a little bit at the start, so sorry if I'm trying to dig a little bit more, and maybe it's just the journalistic nerd in me wanting to know, but like, did you pitch the Colts on this idea? Did Braden and the Colts come to you? I don't want to put you in a bad spot.
This is Braden's idea, and I would think that it's okay to say that, because Braden and Courtney too, the Smiths as a couple, want to be a light for people who are going through stuff like this. They want to be a support, and I think the only way for them to do that was to tell their story.
I mean, you told it well, Joe. I certainly enjoyed reading it. I'll probably reread it. I'll share it, and I'll send it to my mom, who by the way, still subscribes to Indy Star. So I'm like, how you gonna subscribe to the competition? Like, what are we doing here? But she never got rid of her Indy Star subscription. I told her not to, actually.
She's a Brewers fan. She wants to support Joel.
Exactly. But I know you'll never say it because you're too humble, and Chap's the same way. But great job, my friend. I think you deserve your credit in that, because it's one thing to have someone tell you a story, but then to take all that information, condense it to a certain degree, get it out there, and also get out of the way in a sense where you're not the one, telling it. I think this very much reads like I'm talking to Braden or Courtney myself. You take pride in that, my friend, as I'm sure you will. The last one I'll ask you, as far as the story itself, is, do you sleep the night before, you got a story coming out, or are you making tweaks until the final buzzer? Because I've been in situations like this before where it's like, man, especially with something that's like this delicate, we've all done like the big team stories and the trade deadline, how this come together. But when it's a humanity type of piece, how much are you looking at every single word, up until it goes live?
Yeah, I think this might, like KB says, this might be a little inside journalism, but I think I have a reputation on the beat for being pretty fast as a writer. This one was not fast. This one was not fast. This one was very, this one took a long time. You really do kind of, on stories like this, I think that the right thing to do is, when you're telling someone's perspective, is every time you don't have a quote and you're writing something that's outside of the quotes, you go back to what they've said and match up what you're writing with what they've said. I think that's the biggest thing, because it's the goal was to have Braden and Courtney talking to you through the story. So I'm glad that came through, and I appreciate all the kind words you guys have said.
Joel, last one before I start hating on the Brewers. It's
implied, Kevin.
I wanted to make sure I waited, and I guess we waited to use that pronoun to ask you maybe more of a football-related question to Braden Smith till the end of it, because I do think so much of the story needs to be about what you wrote. But as you did write in the story, the Colts restructured the contract for the final year of Braden's current deal. The draft is coming up here in 2 weeks. I think even before this story, when you draft Matt Gonzalez in round 3 last year, I thought, okay, that could be your right tackle of the future. I guess I'll ask a little big picture, but with the Braden element certainly factoring in, how do you view offensive line in regards to upcoming draft?
I have thought for a long time. Chris Ballard said, at the combine, I think James asked about, just where he saw the draft was deep, and he said the offensive line specifically in the middle rounds. And I just kind of made a mental note, and I think that the position almost in the middle rounds with Chris hasn't mattered. Like Braden, they drafted as guard, and he's been an excellent right tackle for a long time. I think that spot I have earmarked, like just as a note in my head. Hey, when we get to the 3rd and 4th rounds, if there's no offensive lineman, just kind of start expecting it.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm at as well. Well, if Robin Yount and Paul Molitor and Ryan Braun had a baby, Joel, it would be your effort on this story.
Don't forget Cecil Fielder.
Yeah, throw in whoever else, Cecil Cooper.
I'm sorry, not Prince Fielder. I'm thinking
whoever else.
Cecil Cooper and Prince Fielder, you smashed them together.
Yeah. Well, that would be a hell of a player. Great work, Joel. Awesome job, man. Thank you for the time.
I appreciate it. Thanks, you guys, for having me on.
Joel A. Ericson on this Tuesday morning. Highly encourage everybody to check that out. I think all of us have retweeted it here this morning. Also, there is video. As you mentioned, again, Courtney and Braden, clearly they wanted the story out there and not just wanted it in a, I guess a little bit more of a private manner. So unbelievable, certainly from Courtney and Braden, but Joel as well.
All right, let's check it down. And before we do that, James, we'll say goodbye to you today. You got to get out to the Colts facility.
Yeah,
right?
I'm going to go give Joel a hug. So, I make this joke sometimes on my Instagram story, but call somebody today, tell him you love him, and then explain why. Maybe that'll help him, get through the day.
Well said.
Sounds good. All right, James, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good time today. And in the meantime, let's check it down, Mark.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. 2025-26 season tickets are on sale now. Registration for iconic Hinkle Fieldhouse premium seats runs through May 31st. Don't miss Hinkle Magic. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
That's some NCAA magic over the weekend for all the jumping up and down and holding our breath and talking about how NIL is going to ruin everything and the little guy is dead, no more Cinderella, no more buzzer beaters. That might have been one of the top 3 Final Fours of all time, Kevin Bowen.
Yeah, easily. The drama, again, we've said all morning long, the team that led at the final media timeout of both games on Saturday and last night, all of them lost, and I think Houston just had another turnover late. 4 of them in the final 90 seconds. Just unbelievable to watch that unravel for them. Florida didn't even make a field goal in the final 3 minutes of the game, and yet they are your national champions. And incomprehensible is the word Kelvin Sampson used. I thought that described that final possession and not at least getting an attempt at the rim for an offensive rebound.
Some people get tattoos to have things with them forever. Unfortunately, I don't think Kelvin Sampson's ever going to forget what happened in those last 19 seconds.
No, and, again, we've talked about it a lot, but I would say just the fact that they didn't get a shot up at all. Up 1, they had the ball with a chance to maybe ice it. Down 1, a chance to retake the lead, don't get a shot up, a turnover. And then the final play that you watched there. I'm fine with going for a 3, but just shoot it with 7 or 8 seconds to go, where you at least allow one of your greatest strengths to have an opportunity.
All right, 65-63 the final, and Florida is your national champion. In the NBA last night, Sacramento defeated the Pistons 127-117. That means, Kevin, the Pistons are 3.5 games behind the Pacers. The Milwaukee Bucks remain 3 games behind the Pacers. And, of course, if Indiana can win another game and get a loss from certainly Milwaukee at this point, they would clinch the 4th spot and get home court advantage in the first round. But they would play either one of those teams, whichever one then finishes in 5th. Detroit and Milwaukee play one another back-to-back in the final 2 games of their seasons.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty safe to say it's looking like Pacers-Bucks in round 1 with home court here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I think that's kind of where the standings are heading. Again, tonight the Pacers are an 18.5-point favorite, which is absolutely insane. It's the 3rd biggest spread of any NBA game this season. Mark Dykton is staying away from this like the plague.
Yep. Don't touch it.
You don't believe in the 162 they dropped on Washington 10 days ago?
I mean, I do, but I also know that double digits that degree by any NBA team is... I mean, what are we doing here? You pulling
Washington
for the...
isn't a real team.
I know, but are you pulling for
Pacers.
Are you pulling for the
Pacers.
Wizards? No. You got to go somewhere. No, I'm not touching it. I will take my money that I won yesterday, and I will, hold on to it a little bit longer. I'm not touching this game.
I mean, again, you need like Ray J. Davis and Johnny Furphy to outplay their Johnny Furphys in the 4th quarter, right?
Because I assume at some point the Pacers are going to be playing those guys, and I'm not. Do you have confidence that they're going to be able to spot you almost 20 points?
Yeah, that's just an unhealthy, degenerate bet.
Also tonight, Milwaukee will be hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves, and you can hear the Pacers game beginning at 6:30 with the pregame coverage, and then at 7 o'clock, the great Mark Boyle has the play-by-play right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Major League Baseball yesterday. Shutouts everywhere, Mark Dykton.
Yep.
Shutouts everywhere.
Looking good.
Our Reds, Kevin, blanked the San Francisco Giants 2-0 the final score. Hunter Green, 8 2/3 innings of 4-hit baseball.
Man, throwing it back a little bit there, Hunter Green, to old school pitching days in the month of April there. Yeah, outstanding. The Reds scored 2 in the 8th finally, and then they were able to hold on there and took Hunter Green out with 2 men on in the bottom of the 9th.
And the Justin Steele-led Chicago Cubs blanked the Texas Rangers 7-0. He went 7 innings in that. Did you watch any of that game, Mark?
I briefly watched it, but I was mostly locked in on the national championship game. I did check Marquee, though. I did watch a little bit.
All right. A couple of things to note in the transfer portal. Butler has a new player, Michael Ajayi, who played at Gonzaga last year and then I think averaged almost 18 points a game at Pepperdine the year before that.
Great
right?
at Pepperdine, yeah. 18-9 he averaged there, led the West Coast Conference. Much quieter at Gonzaga off the bench, so certainly Butler. 6'7", 220. Ajayi, Butler hoping that they can kind of drum up a little bit of the Pepperdine stuff from him. Miles Colvin off to Wake Forest, and Oklahoma has got a bit of an indie flair to it. Nigel Pack transferring to Oklahoma. Tay Davis left Notre Dame. He is off to play for Porter Moser as well. So transfer portal starting to take a little bit of shape here, as certainly the month of April will be all about that.
All right, coming up in a moment, KB and JB had a chance to talk to the coach, Rick Carlisle, a little while ago. I want to ask Kevin Bowen what he learned from that conversation heading into the last 4 games of the year for the Pacers. We'll do it here next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You ever turn on your phone, Mark, and you just look at it and lights up, and then it's got like the little notifications you've gotten if you haven't addressed them over the last 12 hours or whatever?
Yeah, and I'm always like, when did this happen? When did these come through?
I've got one that is advising me at, let's see, at 10:20. I'm sorry, it was 9:20. Your ideal bedtime is within the next hour. We weren't even at halftime at that point, were we?
No. Man, you got more sleep apps than I have, like, gambling apps.
That's just one app. Just one app.
So then you disobeyed the app, and now it's mad at you, saying you didn't get a good enough sleep.
No, I just felt bullied by you, so I had to stay up.
Well, I'm sorry.
That
was a good game. It was worth. If it was like 20-point deficit, I was like, go ahead.
No,
put your nightcap on.
It was not hard to get into that, especially as the clock started to wind down. About 7-8 minutes to go, you kind of perk up because you could see that finish.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not that specific, but you could see a final possession finish coming, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, Houston, I'm trying to think. Maybe they had a moment or two where they could have stretched it a little bit more. I thought it was impressive that Florida, began that comeback with Walter Clayton Jr. on the bench. And I know, again, he had struggled mightily early on in that game. And then he had a couple of big and ones there, and then it was game on. And, I thought at that under 4 timeout, Florida was down 3. I think Houston had just turned it over. I said to myself, okay, I've seen this movie from Florida. I know how it goes. UConn round 2, Texas Tech in the Elite 8, even Auburn the other night. We're going to come back, and Clayton Jr. is going to take over. That's exactly what's going to happen. Well, sure enough, they come back, and Todd Golden ran some great plays out of timeouts all game long. Boom. Clayton Jr. hits that 3 to tie it up. It's crazy, though, Jeff. That's the last field goal in the entire game.
Well, the other team keeps giving you the ball back. You
for
can do
Florida.
That.
I mean, they just, if you would have said to Florida, you're down at the under 4 media timeout, and you're going to make one field goal the rest of the game and win it.
You feel pretty good.
And yet, well, no, you would think there's no chance they're going to win the game.
I'm talking about the other side. Yeah.
And yet they were able to, win it there. And yes, too, I think Houston, had a little bit of, spit up or puke, sure. But I also thought Florida had some pretty good defensive possessions. And the Clayton Jr. closeout on Emmanuel Sharp clearly put him in a moment of conflict, and he made the wrong decision.
Sometimes the play of the game is not a shot. Sometimes the play of the game just is a great play in crunch time, and the defender made it last night. And 65-63, the Florida Gators are the national champions, and 0 for 7 now at the Final Four for Houston. That stings.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
Imagine being that fan base.
That stings, man. All right, speaking of basketball, a little while ago, you had the opportunity, you and JB, to talk to the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, Rick Carlisle, heading down the stretch here. Pacers look like they're on the verge, I don't want to speak too early, but on the verge of clinching the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. One thing I ought to bring up, and it's just me ranting here, I was looking at an ESPN playoff predictor, and they were talking about the 7 teams that could make a run to the NBA. They had 3 from the Eastern Conference. It was Boston, Cleveland, and the Knicks. The Pacers were not mentioned, Kevin. I'm a little upset.
Well, I can't say I'm too shocked given the corporation that you mentioned there. And to be fair, I do think those 3 teams are pretty good. And I think if the Knicks can stay healthy, they were my pick at the start of the year. I don't want to act like they're going to come out of the East, but that makes sense. I having said that, I think the Pacers have been incredibly tough out. Now, again, can you string it together? You can't ignore they did get some injury luck last year in making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But at the same time, I think they are a unique matchup. And I think there are a lot of teams out there that don't want to see Indiana in round 1, round 2, whatever, because they play a different style. They play a lot of guys.
But, yeah, their rotation is deep and functional.
Yeah. And, those were some of the convos we had with Rick Carlisle earlier. I think the Jarris Walker conversation was an interesting one. I know Rick didn't really care for me saying Walker's minutes have been up and down. I'd probably push back on that. He had 3 coaches' decisions benchings last month and had a lot of games under 10 minutes in last month. But, they turned to him late the other night, and he delivered in a big moment out there in Denver. I think the TJ McConnell answer on McConnell seemingly producing a steal in the backcourt every game. I thought Rick definitely shared some fun insight into that. And then also just how Tyrese Halliburton will be guarded starting a week from Saturday
It'll
or
get
Sunday.
physical again.
Is it going to get physical? Is it going to be double teams? It seems like those are the 2 things of, do you see the Denver approach? Denver, I don't think was uber physical. They just showed 2 bodies at him. And then you have to make a decision and trust your teammates. whereas the physicality lends to a little bit more of, do you have that one-on-one 6'7" wing defender, 6'8" wing defender that can, produce that matchup. So that will be a fascinating storyline, arguably the biggest storyline for the Pacers whenever the playoffs do begin.
Kevin Bowen, Jeff Rickard, Mark Dykton. Mark, I say somehow we adopt the T.J. McConnell saying of, stay out of my bag.
Yeah.
Whenever his teammates grab kind of a blindside steal or ambush a pass or whatever, yells at them, Kevin, stay out of my bag.
Put it in a T-shirt.
I mean, I can hear Chris and Quinn just screeching, and probably more Quinn than Chris, of, a McConnell! I mean, they seemingly yell it every time in the backcourt. And, oftentimes the camera isn't on it. The camera's panned to something else, and, they're showing whatever. Mathurin hits a bucket. You're showing Mathurin run back down the floor, and next thing you know, McConnell's got a steal in the backcourt. I mean, it is amazing. And the fact that he does it seemingly every single night, and oftentimes, Jeff, he does it to the other team's backup point guard. And I would think if you were the backup point guard for the Nuggets, for example, the other night, you're thinking to yourself, I know this is his MO, and I am going to be matched up against him for probably 10 minutes during the game. 5 minutes in the first half, 5 minutes in the second half. Whatever I do, just make sure that I know where he is at all times before the inbounder.
You'd think.
And I thought Rick described it really well. It's like a defensive back kind of closing on the ball there. So for those that missed that answer, definitely check that out. Mark will have that up on the podcast.
And I also learned, I didn't know this, that TJ's been inducted into the University of Arizona Hall of Fame for having a decade in the NBA.
Yeah, he was cool. Earlier this year. Yeah. Earlier this year, he went in. So I forget when that was, January, February, when the Pacers played the Suns. For playing 10 years in the NBA. Not so much to do with what he did at Arizona. He transferred to Arizona. Duquesne is where he started. He is a Pittsburgh, Philly, or Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh guy. Started at Duquesne, then transferred to Arizona. And, for playing 10 years in the NBA, which is, incredibly impressive for an undrafted free agent to do that. And not just playing. I mean, he's not Udonis Haslem. He's not passing out water. I mean, he's not James Johnson. He's legitimately getting minutes on one of the better teams in the entire league.
More importantly, he seems to contribute every time he's on the floor.
Sure.
That's the big thing. He's not just coming in to hold the fort. I think he's a difference maker when he's on the floor against the other team's backups.
Yeah, I thought he was huge on Sunday, and I thought the bench as well. So, again, 18.5-point favorite tonight, the Indiana Pacers. That is last week when they played Charlotte. I want to say that spread was 14, and at the time, that was the biggest the Pacers had all season. This is the biggest spread they've had all year. It's the third biggest in the entire NBA.
And like we said before the Hornets game the other night, don't play with your food tonight. Just get a nice, comfortable lead. Take care of business. We want to see a lot of Johnny Furphy minutes. I'd love to see Johnson get in the game tonight. Wouldn't that be great?
Do you
Playing
think
basketball?
James Boyd is off at the Colts local pro day right now. We'll share more on what the local pro day is here coming up in a few. Do you think James Boyd can name more golfers in the Masters or players in the Wizards?
He's pretty locked into basketball. I'll go Wizards.
Mark, read off the Wizards' available roster.
This is available
for tonight. Middleton's not playing. Malcolm Brogdon's not playing. Bilal Coulibaly, remember Wembanyama's teammate they drafted early? He's not playing there. I think
he might know more golfers.
I think James Boyd might know more golfers.
Yeah, that might be accurate. I'm trying
Are we getting like Corey Kispert? Is he around? Sarr, the big man they drafted?
I didn't know Corey Kispert was playing for Washington.
I think he was a lottery pick.
I know these guys, but I don't know him on Washington. The draft pick, obviously, I do. But no, I think, you know what? Maybe we can give him a little quiz tomorrow. PGA golfer or Washington Wizard.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kev?
And we do need to do our Masters draft.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think we should do
whether
that.
you're 1 through 4, or do you have a different strategy for each spot?
No, I mean, I think it should be total score. So let's do, there's 4 of us. Let's do 3-man teams, and you add up the total score, and the lowest score obviously wins.
I like it.
You guys good with that?
Yeah,
I'm good with it.
Because obviously there's a chance. I don't think it's a great chance. There's a chance that one of the 12 we pick is not the winner of the tournament. So I think it's best to do the combined score.
Fine by me.
I like it.
I'm excited for you to draft all live golfers. I'm assuming that's your play.
Wow. He does not.
I certainly won't be dabbling in that. But
can your hand write the names down?
No,
of the live golfer. Will your hand allow that?
Shaking tremendously. I would say this: the live aspect does create, I think, some entertaining drama around the majors. Like Jeff, you brought up the name John Rahm the other day.
Yeah,
I mean, some people might have forgotten about John Rahm. Like,
this course is made for him too.
Oh wow, John Rahm, yeah. Or like, what's Brooks Koepka doing? Was the Bryson DeChambeau, major run last year, especially the U.S. Open, was that just kind of a one-off? Don't look now, but Phil Mickelson has weirdly played good golf over on live this year. Is like Phil gonna resurrect it here again? North of 50 years old.
Tough.
It's one of those things where you hear those names and you're like, yeah, those guys are like winning tournaments in the PGA, and now they've kind of fallen off. Like, I don't even know what they're doing these days.
Right.
Like, I have no clue.
So it adds just, I think, and I thought Rory Bryson had a little bit of the venom last year at Pinehurst of PGA Live. I don't want to drum that up. Like, I think that can be a little Hollywoody, but I do think there is just the general like unknown of, boy, Patrick Reed, a former Masters champion, Sergio Garcia, a former Masters champion. Is there anything left in the tank for these guys? They seemingly live in obscurity, play on the Live Tour. And
how old is Sergio now?
Oh, yeah, he's probably definitely north of 40.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, we'll do that coming up tomorrow morning. Coming up in just a minute, we'll get you ready for the night ahead. Jiffy Lube Superstat of the day. Kevin Bowen, Jeff Rickard, James Boyd is on assignment now over the Colts. Mark Dykton making it all happen. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Happy Tuesday. The NCAA men's tournament comes to a close. We all stayed up and watched that last night. And, Mark, you were reveling. I feel like I'm waking up now. I can see across the room clearly. I didn't even drink. What's happened to me?
Well, I think thank you to Cluster Truck for providing a bit of that pick-me-up here.
Oh, they did, too.
The crispy chicken wrap, excellent choice by Jeff and myself. And the pimento cheese sandwiches, unreal.
Did you get the crispy chicken sandwich, too?
That's what I got as well.
Wow.
And Masters Week is here. The pimento cheese sandwich available on the menu over at Cluster Truck. FAN is your promo code, FAN. Cluster Truck, you will not regret it. Outstanding here locally.
Didn't they say you could get some Cluster Truck golf balls, too, this week?
I think they are available as well.
Yeah, I saw them yesterday.
Yeah.
Didn't you see them, Mark, when you went to make your selection?
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, let's check out the Jiffy Lube stat of the day as we transition out of NCAA tournament. Of course, it's brought to you by Jiffy Lube, doing oil changes since 1985 here in Indiana. Just had mine done the other day, Kevin.
There you go. I think I'm probably due at some point.
Yep. Several interesting stats came from last night's Florida win over Houston in the NCAA men's basketball tournament championship game. The Gators are just the 6th team in tournament history, men, to trail both their national semifinal and the championship game at halftime and then go on to win. The others were Louisville in 2013. They had to vacate that title. You may know about that one, Mark.
Yeah, I recall it.
Kentucky in 98, Duke in 92, Louisville again in 1986, and Kentucky again all the way back in 1951. The 12-point deficit Florida overcame against the Cougars was the third largest comeback win in title game history. Only the 2022 Kansas Jayhawks, remember they were down 16 to North Carolina, and then the 63 Loyola Chicago Ramblers down 15 to Cincinnati. I don't remember that game either.
Was Sister Jean playing? Was she dating one of the players on the team?
I don't know. Was Oscar already gone in 63 from Cincinnati? Had he already moved? I think he'd already gone.
Was he?
I'm not sure.
I feel like he might have been on that team.
Anyway, Florida's 3 championships since 2000 ties them with North Carolina and Duke for the second most titles during that period. Only UConn with 5 has won more men's basketball championships in the millennium. I was thinking about this with UConn the other day before I get to one of the things Scotty provided. Think about that school now. 17 titles between the men and women. Are they the basketball school in America?
I would think, yeah, right? Has anyone else got Tennessee has never been to a Final Four in the men. UCLA women, I know this year they got there, but yeah, I would say UConn for sure.
I mean, they just keep winning championships everywhere. Different coaches, Gino did all his thing, but he had 3 different coaches for UConn, right? You had Jim Calhoun, you had the Kevin Ollie year, and then Dan Hurley won back-to-back. So,
and a reminder, we'll have the Final Four here in Indy coming up in 2026.
Did you see that commercial heading into the national championship last night? That was nice.
Yes. Yep.
Finally, the 39-year-old Florida head coach Todd Golden is the youngest coach to win the title since 37-year-old Jim Valvano led North Carolina State past Houston back in 1983 in the title game. They're the youngest head coach to win the NCAA tournament. IU's Branch McCracken, KB. He was 31 when the Hoosiers won back in 1940. Bob Knight ranks 4th on the list, winning his first title in 76 at the age of 35.
So if you're a Purdue fan, you look at these preseason polls, you're going to see your team ranked very, very high. You'll get a regional in Chicago next year, and you'll get the Final Four at Lucas Oil Stadium. Wouldn't that be something?
We saw Houston do it in Texas. Why not Purdue and Indiana, Kevin? Let's go.
Purdue and Indiana,
no,
or
Purdue
in Indiana? Okay, I wasn't noticing.
Why not and? Why not?
Well,
let's play why not. We don't even know who the team is going to be consisting of.
I was going to say.
We don't know who the team's makeup yet.
That'd be like you wanting to put $10 on the Colts winning the Super Bowl at the end of last week. I was like, you just hand that money to me.
I did see.
So you can put it on a similar bet with soccer?
Yeah, probably.
Peas.com, a little bit of an update on Tucker DeVries. That would be the son of Darren. Great score for anybody that watched Drake or even the brief West Virginia game. 6'7" shooter. Very skilled player. Think kind of little Doug McDermott vibes from college. Sounds like he should be full go here relatively soon. He's dealt with some shoulder issues. I mean, that's the only reason they think he's going to get this 5th year is these shoulder issues. And I remember watching the West Virginia opening press conference for his dad. So this would have been last spring, and he was in a sling in that. And, obviously a shoulder issue. Ended his season after 8 games this season. So I do think no matter what Indiana's roster will look like here come this fall, the health of Tucker DeVries with these persistent shoulder issues is certainly to keep an eye on.
You're Purdue also, and you talk about portal. You got the big kid Clough coming in. What else would you like to see them go and get?
Got to get a wing. Yeah, you got to get some sort of 3-and-D. I mean, really, you need you need Heidi or a Colvin. I mean, that's kind of what you need. I don't think necessarily that guy is a starter. I think a starting group of C.J. Cox and Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith in the backcourt, and then whether it's Clough and Kaufman-Renn or Daniel Jacobson and Kaufman-Renn, that's kind of your starting five. But yeah, you definitely need some 6'6", 6'7" sort of wing defender.
Yeah, and then we just wait and see what Indiana puts together probably over the next month and a half, something like that. He's gonna have to go late into this process because how many players does he actually have on the roster right now?
I mean, is it 4? His son, Connor Enright, the point guard from DePaul, the Davidson big dude, and then Trent Sisley, I think the 5-star freshman. So we'll see if Luke Goody gets an extra year, how that all plays out. But yeah, I mean, they need 8, 9 more guys, which is kind of crazy.
Still keep my eye on the Singleton kid that we saw from Jeffersonville.
Has he decommitted?
No, he didn't. But I just thought it was, again, I may be reading way too much into it, so I apologize to the young man, and I'm not putting words in his mouth.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting in the post-game interview after they won the state championship when he was asked what's next. He talked about anything but school and where he was heading. So again,
got it.
Could be nothing. Could be just kids celebrating the moment. So I don't want to put that out there. I just made something went off in my head like, oh, that was an interesting kind of non-answer, right?
Interesting.
But I think he's scheduled to go Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken. So, all right, Mark, anything else you want to throw in before we head off for the day?
Not much. Get a nap in, everybody.
What did you get from Cluster Truck today?
I had the breakfast burrito. I haven't had it in 2 weeks. I was like,
I'm going
with Old Faithful here.
Is that the one with the tater tots in the middle?
Oh, yeah. Delicious. Outstanding. Incredible. And I'll have a pimento cheese sandwich to
Are you into pimento cheese?
I don't mind it. Like I told Kevin, we bought a spread from Sam's Club last year.
It's a must this week. It'll be in the Bowen fridge, and it'll be eaten. It won't make it till the back nine on Sunday.
It's solid. I like it.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Enjoy the day. Jay comes your way at noon. JMB at 3. We'll talk to you bright and early tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.